Good afternoon, everyone. If you could take a seat, please, so we can get started with our hearing, I sure would appreciate it. We are first going to do the Department of Information Technology this afternoon. Yashadari Rai is our budget analyst, and we have Secretary Katie Savage, and we will start with the analyst.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I am Yashodhara Rai, and I'll be presenting the fiscal 27 budget analysis for the Department of Information Technology, or DOIT. Cover chart on page 1 shows that DOIT's fiscal 27 budget increases by $4.6 million, or 0.9%. This is after accounting for planned reversion. The fiscal 27 budget includes $58 million in federal funds for the new Maryland Benefits Program that was transferred from the Department of Human Services, DHS, and the Maryland Department of Health, MDH, beginning fiscal 26. Moving on to performance analysis, Exhibit 1 on page 6 shows that cybersecurity indicators were in an upward trend in fiscal 25. 89% of state employees were compliant with cybersecurity awareness training. 92% of end-user devices were continuously monitored, and servers which have undergone a vulnerability scan in the last 30 days reached their highest at 97%. DOIT also began reporting the number of security incident tickets received and investigated by the Security Operations Center under the Office of Security Management, OSM, beginning fiscal 23. The number of security incident tickets received in fiscal 25 decreased by 58.3% from fiscal 24. DOIT should comment on the contributing factors that lowered the number of security incident tickets. Exhibit 2 on page 8 shows that all 3 major IT project indicators dropped in fiscal 25, reaching the lowest level between fiscal 2020 and fiscal 25. Last year, in the budget hearing testimony, DOIT explained that procurement delays and inaccurate schedule estimates contributed to lowered major IT project performance measures. To improve this, DOIT noted that it was working with the Office of State Procurement. Also, in fiscal 26, DOIT established the Major IT Development Projects Oversight Division in accordance with Chapters 845 and 846 of 2025 to standardize, monitor, and support the implementation of major IT projects and expedited projects. This division is expected to improve the declining performance indicators, and DOIT should comment on its efforts to address the declining major IT performance measures. Exhibit 3 on page 9 indicates that about 103,000 service desk tickets were received in fiscal 25. Of these, 84% were resolved by first contact and 75% were resolved in 24 hours. 2 indicators, average IT cost per full-time equivalent and the percent of IT service rate within the average industry benchmarks, were added in the 2024 MFR submission. The average IT cost per full-time equivalent increased to about $14,100 in fiscal 25 from $13,500 in fiscal 24. The 2025 MFR submission does not include data for the percentage of IT service rate within the average industry benchmark, and DOIT notes that no data is reported due to the unavailability of funds to conduct an annual study by a third-party vendor. Also, in the fiscal 26 budget testimony, DOIT had noted that it was assessing alternative ways to collect data without annual vendor engagement, and DOIT should brief if any alternative ways have been identified. There is a planned reversion of $1.4 million related to the savings identified through the Government Modernization Initiative in fiscal 27 allowance. This includes $1.1 million in savings from modifying the laptop replacement schedule from 3 years to 5 years, and about $260,000 in savings from the new renegotiated Motorola contract for the radio program. Exhibit 4 on page 11 shows an overview of the fiscal 27 allowance. Maryland Benefits and the IT Investment Fund, ITIF, accounts for a total of 49.4% of the total allowance. Exhibit 5 on page 12 shows fiscal 27 allowance split by objects. As you can see, 84.2%, or about $425 million of the fiscal 27 allowance accounts for contractual services, which are related to ITIF, Maryland benefits, operations, and cybersecurity. Exhibit 6 on page 13 presents the fiscal 27 allowance split by fund sources. Exhibit 7 on pages 14 and 15 highlights the proposed budget changes. The largest increase of about $11 million is due to the net increase of 91 contractual full-time equivalent expenses. These are discussed in the personnel section. This is partially offset by a decrease of $4.2 million for Maryland Benefits Program, about $4.2 million decrease in reimbursable funds for major IT projects, and a decrease of about $3.6 million in funding for cybersecurity assessments that were included in fiscal 26 budget. Beginning at the bottom of page 15 through page 22, we discuss major IT projects and ITIF. In accordance with language in last year's budget bill, DOIT submitted draft eligibility criteria for an expedited project. These are listed on page 16. The fiscal 27 allowance includes $3 million in general funds in ITIF for expedited projects. However, the eligibility criteria for an expedited project has not been finalized, and a proposed list of projects that may potentially be categorized as an expedited project is not available, and DLS recommends deleting the $3 million in general funds for expedited projects. Page 17 discusses the new Major IT Project Oversight Division. This was established as per chapters 845 and 846. This division includes two teams, the discovery team and the intervention team. The discovery team helps in defining scope for a major IT project, while the intervention team includes experts who will assist agencies in major IT development and practices. The fiscal 27 allowance includes $3.5 million in ITIF for 10 discovery sprints and $5 million in ITIF to support 16 intervention teams. DOIT should comment on how it will prioritize major IT projects that require assistance from these teams, and should provide a list of potential projects where these teams will be deployed in fiscal 27. Also beginning fiscal 27, DOIT has consolidated oversight funding for the major IT projects. The fiscal 27 budget includes a total of $4.3 million for oversight operations. This includes $4 million for oversight staffing and $250,000 for oversight operations. DOIT should comment on how many positions the $4 million in oversight staffing will support, and also to what extent will the new oversight division assist in mitigating the problems related to incorrect scope and cost estimates for the major IT projects. Exhibit 8 on page 18 shows the ITIF fund transactions from fiscal 24 through 27. As you can see, ITIF is mainly funded through the general funds. Exhibit 9 on page 20 shows the trends for general fund appropriation in ITIF over the last decade. Fiscal 27 budget is about 94% higher than fiscal 25. This is mostly due to the higher general fund appropriation for the comptroller's 3 major IT projects as they enter procurement and implementation phases. There are 4 new projects included in fiscal 27 allowance that receives ITIF. Also, each major IT project receiving ITIF must submit an information technology project request, ITPR, which is then shared with DLS. However, an ITPR for DOIT's new statewide permitting platform project was not provided, and DLS recommends deleting $500,000 for this project. DLS recommendations for agency IT projects appear in the respective agency's budget analysis. Summary of these recommendations appear on page 21. One of the recommendations that is made is related to the new Medicaid pharmacy benefits claim system that deletes $1.5 million in ITIF for the project, as the project is expected to receive 90% from federal funds. The bottom of page 21 discusses that the governor's fiscal 27 budget books do not include out-year funding and cost estimates for major IT projects beginning fiscal 28. The out-year projections have been historically provided with the governor's budget books and are required to estimate the state's general fund projection. This is because ITIF is primarily funded through the general funds. And DLS recommends adopting a narrative that DOIT, in collaboration with DBM, provide out-year projections with the submission of the governor's fiscal 28 budget books. One last discussion on ITIF is the deficiency appropriation that appears on page 22. The fiscal 27 allowance includes approximately $1 million in general funds as fiscal 26 deficiency appropriation for the State Board of Elections new campaign reporting information system. Because general funds for major IT projects are budgeted in ITIF within DOIT's budget and are then distributed to the requesting agency as reimbursable funds, this requirement also applies to any deficiency appropriations for major IT project. DOIT and DBM should ensure that deficiency appropriations are correctly budgeted in ITIF beginning in fiscal 28 to ensure that DOIT has oversight. DOIT should also comment on how it will coordinate with SBE to ensure that it maintains oversight of the project. Pages 22 through 25 discuss personnel data. The fiscal 27 allowance includes 11 new regular positions. Of these, 9 positions will support developing and procuring technology solutions to improve digital services, and 2 positions will support establishing a technical procurement team as required by Chapter 601 of 2025. DLS recommends increasing turnover expectancy for the 11 new positions to 25%, which are supported with general funds. The fiscal 27 allowance also includes 91 new contractual FTEs, which is shown in Exhibit 10 on page 23. 86 positions were previously funded through contracts and are transitions to state contractual to generate savings and reduce dependency on external vendors. DOIT should comment on how much savings the transition of these positions will generate. The remaining 5 positions are new contractual FTEs who will support the technical procurement team. As of December 31st, 2025, DOIT reported 34 vacant positions, of which 8 positions have been vacant for less than 6 months, 5 positions have been vacant for more than a year, and 21 positions have never been filled. Exhibit 11 on page 24 shows the status of the 21 positions that have never been filled. Moving on to the first issue on page 26, Chapter 242 of 2022 expanded and enhanced the state's regulatory framework for state and local government cybersecurity. It also requires OSM to submit an annual report on its key accomplishments. As of February 21, 2026, the annual report had not been submitted. Exhibit 12 on page 27 shows the funds for various cybersecurity efforts across state agencies in fiscal 27 allowance. Chapter 242 also requires DOIT to conduct external statewide cybersecurity assessments at least once every 2 years. The second assessment was required to be conducted during calendar 24. However, DOIT noted that challenges with contract structure and cost concerns deferred the assessments to fourth quarter of fiscal 26. Technical evaluation of proposals from contractors is currently in progress. I also wanted to highlight that the fiscal 25 budget included $28 million in general funds for cybersecurity assessments. However, only $3.1 million was expended for cybersecurity assessments. At the fiscal 25 closeout, $8 million in general funds was reverted due to several cyber procurements that were not completed during fiscal 25. This still leaves a balance of $16.9 million in general funds that is not accounted for, and DOIT should clarify the utilization of the $16.9 million that was budgeted for cybersecurity assessments in the fiscal 25 budget. Exhibit 13 on pages 28 and 29 presents the status of the remediation actions that were identified during the first cybersecurity assessments, which was conducted during calendar 2022 and 2023. DOIT should comment on the estimated funding requirement to ensure that these remediation actions are always deployed and operational. The second issue on pages 29 and 30 focuses on AI. DOIT launched the Maryland Data Academy to create opportunities for state employees to better understand how data influences and drives AI solutions. As of February 2026, there are 8 agencies and 40 representatives actively participating. The program is scheduled to be fully launched in spring of 2026. The AI study roadmap, which was published last year, listed various study topics to understand the evolving needs of the industry, explore the uses of generative AI related to the state's workforce, and prioritize state actions, policies, and practices. According to DoIT, agencies are in the process of submitting their findings to DoIT and the governor's office, who will then determine the next steps to leverage them as internal strategy. DLS recommends adopting a narrative for a report on the state's AI efforts and the progress the state has made towards its implementation. The third issue appears on page 30 and discusses the transfer of Maryland Benefits platform from MDH and DHS to DoIT beginning fiscal 26. Previously, MDH was the operator of this platform and provided application services to multiple state agencies. With the increase in users over time and to ensure continued integration across multiple agencies and identify efficiencies, the Board of Public Works approved a reimbursable fund amendment to transfer this platform to DoIT. DoIT is now the operator of this platform and is responsible for day-to-day operations and the eligibility and enrollment application. 2 applications, which are the Child, Juvenile, and Adult Management System and the Child Support Management System, will remain with DHS. However, in fiscal 26, DHS has reported that operational duties are still integrated with the Maryland Benefits Shared Platform, and they estimate separating these applications by the end of fiscal 26. DoIT should brief the committees on the reason for the continued integration of the 2 applications with the Maryland Benefits, impact of the continued integration, and its contingency plans to ensure that the applications are accessible to the users if the separation of the applications extends beyond fiscal 26. DLS also recommends adopting a narrative requesting a report on the progress of the shared platform. The fourth issue begins on page 31 and notes that the contract for the Project Management Information System, PMIS, was terminated in fiscal 25. This system is used to track an IT project's progress through ITPRs, and due to the termination of the contract, DoIT used the Google platform to support the fiscal 27 funding request cycle. However, Google platform cannot sustain the state's requirement, and so DoIT should comment on the RFP timeline for a new PMIS vendor and its contingency plan for the fiscal 28 funding request cycle. Pages 33 through 35 are DLS recommended actions. Recommendation 1 deletes general funds for expedited projects. Recommendation 2 deletes general funds for the new MDH Major IT project. Recommendation 3 deletes general fund for DoIT's statewide permitting platform IT project. Recommendations 4 and 5 increase budgeted turnover for new positions to 25%, and recommendations 6 through 8 request various reports. Pages 36 through 51 are appendices. On page 36, DLS has noted that DoIT has not submitted 3 reports as of February 2026, which was required by 2025 JCR, and should brief the committees on when they expect to submit the reports. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very thorough job. Thank you. Good job. Okay. Katie Savage, you want to come up? Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name is Katie Savage. I'm the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Information Technology. I'm joined today by my Deputy Secretary and Chief Operating Officer, Melissa Lehman. We want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide this testimony to the committee. And as always, we want to thank Yasha for your diligent work in this analysis. We have provided written responses to all of the requests and want to take this opportunity to highlight some of the progress DoIT has made this past year. Over the past year, DoIT has demonstrated our ability to support our sister agencies with effective internal IT services that are helping them become more secure, efficient, and accessible. In August of 2025, we released the state of Maryland's IT Master Plan, which outlines a bold vision to transform how the state operates, builds, and buys IT services and systems. Everything we do and everything IT leaders across the state do are in accordance with this plan. One key part of the plan that I want to highlight is the need for the state to bring more IT expertise in-house. When I first joined as secretary, DeWitt had no in-house modern software development roles focused on things like product management, engineering, user experience, or accessibility. Our Office of Security Management, which creates and implements cybersecurity programs, policies, and services for the state, had just 3 state employees. Over the past year, we have grown our teams substantially. We have helped our sister agencies hire highly qualified and effective chief information officers as well. Yet even as we have grown the team, we have kept our budget basically flat, as you saw, at 0.9%. In addition, we've also reverted $1 million, as Yasha pointed out, through the Governor's Modernization Initiative back to general funds. One way that we have achieved this is by insourcing and converting contractors to state contractual employees. Approximately 50% of DeWitt's operating budget consists of contract services. So in FY25 alone, DeWitt converted contractors in infrastructure and security operations, which resulted in a savings of $4.7 million to the state. In FY26, DeWitt is focused on converting contractors we've identified in the Maryland Benefits Program, Security Operations, and Data Enterprise, which so far has resulted in $2.65 million in savings across those programs. Another way that we've achieved our cost savings has been through the efforts of our operations and our enterprise platform services team. By consolidating our identity access management and some of our cybersecurity tools, we have identified $16 million in fiscal year 2026 savings, which we are investing into other IT priorities. We also secured a 1.2 annual cost reduction by consolidating our Microsoft Unified Support contract. Our agency hasn't just grown in size over the past year, it has also grown in impact. We released Maryland's first responsible AI use policy, along with an inventory of all AI use cases by agency, which is available on the website we created, ai.maryland.gov. That's also where you can find the state's strategic AI enablement plan. And I am incredibly proud to share that within just 7 months of vetting and rolling out Google's Gemini AI tools to our workforce, 1 in 3 civil servants are actively using a vetted AI enterprise tool for a diverse range of productivity tasks. We have invested heavily in our digital services and human-centered design. This year, we acquired operatorship of the state's Cloud and Benefits Access platform and successfully rebranded it from MD Think to Maryland Benefits, which harkens to the core of what we're really trying to deliver, which is integrated eligibility. By launching the mobile-first eligibility screener in one application, we achieved a 53% reduction in the time required to complete online benefit applications, processing over 320,000 applications since its launch in July. To continue delivering these critical outcomes, we doubled the size of our Maryland Digital Service team and launched the new Maryland.gov on a secure, scalable platform to increase access to services, benefits, and opportunities provided by the state. Of course, to keep serving the public systems, services, and data must remain secure. We've expanded our cybersecurity umbrella to local communities through the new Local Information Security Officer program, which delivers direct support to 42 jurisdictions, including municipalities and K-12 school districts. And we have launched one of the widest reaching state-level vulnerability disclosure programs, or VDPs, in the country. This new cybersecurity program gives security researchers and the general public a legal pathway to report cybersecurity vulnerabilities in web-facing state of Maryland IT websites and services. 40 vulnerabilities have identified, I think I should say 340 vulnerabilities have identified and been remediated so far. On the physical infrastructure side, we are one of the only state agencies in the nation to own and operate our own statewide fiber network and public safety radio system. This year, our public safety network expanded to thousands of new users. Their system provided absolutely critical when first responders used it to save lives during the dangerous flooding in Western Maryland. Further, through the Digital Infrastructure Group executive order signed by Governor Moore, We are actively collaborating to eliminate silos and bridge the digital divide across our state. Underpinning all of this is our commitment to data management and optimization. We recently launched MDIMAP 4.0, advancing our geospatial platform with upgraded statewide imagery that directly supports 911 call centers by improving caller location accuracy. In conclusion, we are building a government that is faster, safer, and more responsive to the people of Maryland. I want to thank you again for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Questions? Senator Bailey? Okay. Can we just talk a little bit about the reports that need to be, that have not been done, that need to be done?
We'll follow up on that because we believe we've submitted all of them. So we'll follow back up with you on that.
If you would, please.
Sure.
I've had several different agencies that have not done reports, and we ask for the reports because we want to see the information.
Okay.
So if you
Well,
could
I'll
follow up with
Sure.
that, I would sure appreciate it. Okay. Nothing else, you guys, huh? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have Melissa Lehman and Katie Snow. Just Melissa Lehman, I think. Yes? Did you want to testify? Okay, thank you very much. Well, okay. Okay, next we have the Department of Labor. Connor Brown is the analyst, and Secretary Portia Wu. Connor, you want to go right ahead?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Connor Brown, Policy Analyst with the Department of Legislative Services, here to present the fiscal 2027 budget analysis for the Department of Labor. To begin, on page 1 of the analysis, the fiscal 2027 budget for labor decreases by $40.6 million, or 5.6%, to $678.5 million. Special funds increased by almost 20%, primarily due to the inclusion of $70 million from the Family and Medical Leave Insurance, or Family Fund, which is expected to be available when required contributions for family leave begin in January of 2027. All other funds decrease compared to the fiscal 26 working appropriation. On pages 2 and 3 are summaries of key observations and recommended actions, which will be discussed in more detail throughout the analysis. At the bottom of page 5 and onto page 6, the performance analysis section begins with Exhibit 1, measuring occupational safety and health complaints investigated by labor. Since fiscal 2020, complaints investigated have seen a significant increase that has been attributed to a nationwide campaign encouraging workers to file complaints coming out of COVID-19, along with state-specific actions like an easier electronic filing method. In fiscal 25, complaint inspections rose slightly to 227, just below fiscal 23's peak of 232. On page 7, Exhibit 2 details correctional education students served by programs that include adult education, GED prep and testing, and English as a second language. Between fiscal 2024 and 2025, the total number of students served decreased by less than 1%. While most programs saw very little change, the number of students earning a high school diploma increased by 25% in fiscal 2025 to 339 students. The 2024 Joint Chairman's Report, or JCR, requested that labor work with the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services and the Maryland Higher Education Commission to report on strategies to maximize the number of incarcerated individuals with jobs upon release. That report is discussed at the bottom of page 7 and then on page 8. There was one finding pertaining to labor that was in the statewide review of budget closeout transactions for fiscal year 25 that was conducted by the Office of Legislative Audits. That finding was that labor could not provide documentation to support the propriety of accrued federal fund revenue entries totaling $63 million, or the subsequent recovery of a $61 million entry That was an accumulation of deficits going back to fiscal 2020. Additionally, labor could not document how it addressed a $67.6 million deficit at the end of fiscal 2024 that they had determined was not recoverable because it had exceeded available federal funding. MD Labor should comment on how much of the federal fund revenue accruals have been collected since the close of fiscal 25. On page 9 is a discussion of federal rescissions, of which there were two main actions that affected labor. The first is that the U.S. Department of Labor terminated unemployment insurance, or UI, modernization funding that had been provided through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. That funding included approximately $23.5 million that had been awarded to labor that was then rescinded. The second is the Inflation Reduction Act funding that labor had received preliminary approval for to modernize energy codes was canceled via executive order back at the beginning of 2025. Despite the award never being received, the fiscal 2026 budget did include almost $900,000 in anticipation of the award. Also on page 9, the legislature added $425,000 in general funds in fiscal 26 for labor, which the agency reported has all been committed to grantees. One of those additions was $250,000 to provide a grant to Dwyer Workforce Development that supports healthcare workforce training. The fiscal 2027 allowance includes $500,000 for that same purpose, and the Department of Legislative Services, DLS, recommends reducing that amount by $250,000 to level fund it with fiscal 25. On page 10, the fiscal 2027 budget includes three proposed deficiencies for fiscal 2026. The first is to add $500,000 to fund the Prince George's County Reentry Employment Incentive Grant that was erroneously reverted at fiscal 2025 closeout. The second proposed deficiency is a $360,000 reduction in general funds to the Public Safety Apprenticeship Program. That reduction is contingent on a provision in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act, or BRFA, which I'll get to shortly. Last is a $400,000 reduction for the Adult High School External Program due to a shortage of applicants. In fiscal 2025, actual spending for the program was reported at around $175,000, and this would bring the fiscal 26 level to about $340,000. The fiscal 2027 allowance includes almost $740,000 for the program, level with the pre-deficiency fiscal 26 funding. DLS recommends reducing the fiscal 2027 allowance by $400,000 to level fund that program at the post-deficiency fiscal 26 amount. On page 11, Exhibit 3 shows an overview of agency spending in fiscal 2027. The largest portion of the budget is for the Division of Racing at 31%. Funding for that primarily comes from gaming revenue and is used for local impact aid, racetrack facility redevelopment, and horse racing purses. On pages 12 through 14, Exhibit 4 outlines line item changes in the fiscal 2027 allowance compared to fiscal 26. Of the $40.6 million budget decrease, the vast majority comes from the Division of Unemployment Insurance, primarily due to lower contract expenses, which are discussed in Issue 2. Contractual employee expenses increased by a little over $1 million, primarily due to a net increase of 25 contractual positions. That increase is due to a shift of correctional education providers from contract agreements with community colleges to become state contractual employees, and it leads to a $2 million decrease in correctional education contracts in the fiscal 2027 allowance. Personnel expenses increased by almost $44 million compared to fiscal 2026. It should be noted, though, that a portion of fiscal 2026 personnel expenditures was actually budgeted in contracts to be allocated at a later date when special funds from a new special administrative expense fund for the Division of Unemployment Insurance were added. Labor estimates that the increase in personnel expenses is closer to about $35 million, and that's primarily due to a decrease in the turnover rate. The fiscal 2027 allowance also includes $2 million for Maryland Teaching Residents Artificial Intelligence Now, dubbed MD Train. That is a new initiative to provide AI training for workers whose jobs are undergoing changes due to AI. DLS recommends deleting the fiscal 2027 allowance for MD Train due to the fiscal condition of the state. On page 15 begins a discussion of provisions in the BRFA impacting labor. Overall, there are 4 provisions, 3 of which would reduce mandates and the other of which is technical. Of the 3 mandate reductions, one is for the Law Enforcement Cadet Apprenticeship Program. It provides grants to law enforcement agencies to help offset costs associated with hiring apprentices. That provision would reduce the mandated appropriation from $750,000 a year to $390,000 beginning in fiscal 2026. The fiscal 27 allowance includes a reduction contingent on this provision, and as mentioned, there's also a proposed efficiency contingent on it as well. The second proposed mandate reduction is for the Career Pathways for Healthcare Workers program, which provides matching grants to pay for training programs for healthcare workers. That provision would reduce the mandate from $500,000 to $350,000, and the fiscal 2027 allowance includes a reduction contingent on that provision. The third proposed mandate reduction is for the Prince George's County Reentry Employment Incentive Program, which has a $500,000 per year mandate through fiscal 2028. This provision would reduce that to $350,000 per year just for fiscal 2027 and 2028. And the fiscal 27 allowance also includes a reduction contingent on that provision. The technical correction I mentioned is related to a provision in last year's BRFA, which required the comptroller to distribute $37.3 million from the Local Income Tax Reserve Account, or LITRA, to Labor's Division of Paid Leave, with Labor repaying that within 2 years after family contributions began. This year's BRFA would amend the recipient of the LITRA transfer to the general fund because Labor also received those funds as a general fund appropriation. It also amends the date of that transfer from on or before July 31st of 2025 to on or before June 1st of 2025. DLS recommends amending the modified date to on or before June 1st of 2026 because the proposed date is in the past and it's before the bill's effective date. At the bottom of page 16 is the personnel section. In October of 2025, the Board of Public Works approved the abolition of 502.7 positions statewide, including vacant positions and positions associated with the Voluntary Separation Program, or VSP. In labor, 31.7 positions were abolished, of which about half of them were vacant and about half were due to the VSP. As of December 31st, 2025, labor had 539.5 vacant positions. However, most of those positions were in the Division of Paid Leave, including almost 250 positions that labor does not intend on filling in fiscal 2026 because of the delayed start date for the family program. Additional discussion on that is in issue 1 of the analysis. Excluding the Division of Paid Leave, labor's vacancy rate was just over 15% at the end of 2025, with almost 100 vacant positions in the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. Labor should comment on the reasons for the high vacancy rate in that division, as well as plans to fill vacant positions across the department. The issue section begins on page 18 with a discussion of family implementation, starting with a description of the program itself for reference. Chapter 363 of 2025 delayed implementation of the program. It moved the start date for required contributions to January 2027, with benefit payments beginning between then and January of 2028. As of January 2026, labor is on track to meet the deadlines and plans to begin benefit payments in January of 2028. On page 19, Exhibit 5 provides an overview of family funding by year. In fiscal 2027, the allowance increases by around 35% compared to fiscal 2026, primarily due to personnel costs. It's really driven by a decrease in the turnover rate from 60% to 8% as family staffs up. As of February, 74 of 366 positions have been filled in the Division of Paid Leave. The fiscal 2027 allowance includes 365 positions, and labor intends to fill a majority of those in fiscal 27. On page 20, Exhibit 2 discusses unemployment insurance. As discussed earlier, the fiscal 2027 allowance for administering the UI program decreases by almost 30% from fiscal 2026. This is primarily due to double budgeting of federal and special funds in fiscal 2026. While more than $100 million in federal funds from the UI administrative allocation was included in the fiscal 2026 working appropriation, labor is only anticipating receiving about $64 million of it. That's because an increase in the administrative allocation was assumed, but due to federal continuing resolutions, that increase never occurred. Much of that difference is covered by special funds from the new administrative fee that was added in last year's BRFA. That fee essentially redirects a portion of tax contributions from the UI Trust Fund to instead be used for UI administrative expenses. This really helps close the gap between federal administrative allocation and expenses that labor incurs administering the program, a gap that's widened over the last few years. The fiscal 2027 allowance includes $37 million from this fee, a slight increase from the $33 million included in fiscal 2026. In fiscal 2025, 125 positions were added to the Division of Unemployment Insurance as part of an effort to bring the UI call center back in-house after it was outsourced during the pandemic. A large part of the decrease in contract expenses in the fiscal 2027 allowance reflects this effort. On page 22, Exhibit 6 shows that while unemployment claims did increase in fiscal 2025, they match the fiscal 2019 level and are significantly lower than fiscal 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic. Despite the return to normal levels, Exhibit 7 on page 23 shows that labor does still struggle to pay claims in a timely manner, with an average of 67% of initial claims paid within 21 days in fiscal 2025. However, labor has indicated that this includes payments made on aged backlog cases where claims were originally denied, and decisions are typically made much faster than that rate. On page 25, Exhibit 8 shows that in fiscal 2025, appeals processing times varied significantly by level. The first level of appeal is the lower appeals division, which processed just 20% of cases within 45 days. If a claimant is not satisfied with the lower appeals division, they can appeal to the Board of Appeals, which had an average pending case age of 15 days, much less than their goal of 40 days. Labor attributed the performance discrepancy to a combination of vastly different case volumes, along with the Board of Appeals' ability to deny review without a full hearing. At the bottom of page 25 and onto page 26 is a discussion of benefit overpayments stemming from an audit by the Office of Legislative Audits. That audit found that the Division of Unemployment Insurance had not timely pursued recovery of overpayments, with up to $760.7 million no longer collectible because the statute of limitations had run out. Overpayment collections were sporadic during the pandemic and paused entirely in January of 2022 due to a lawsuit regarding overpayment notices. While the Division of Unemployment Insurance resumed issuing overpayment determinations on new claims in September of 2023, they did not begin issuing retroactive determinations until December 2025 and just resumed collections in January of this year. Labor should comment on the total amount of unrecoverable overpayments, as well as how much of the unrecoverable overpayments would have been returned to the UI Trust Fund versus returned to the federal government as part of federal pandemic UI. Additionally, labor should comment on collection activities to date, including how many overpayments have been repaid since collection activities resumed. Issue 3 discusses apprenticeships. On page 27, Exhibit 9 shows that the number of active apprentices grew by about 6% in fiscal 2025, continuing a long-term trend upwards. Despite this, the number of new apprentices fell by about 3%, and the number of apprenticeship graduates fell by over 21%. However, labor indicates that this drop is likely due to timing and the drop of graduates is not reflected when comparing calendar 2025 to calendar 2024. Page 27 also discusses the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission, which released its final report of recommendations in March of 2025. Several of these recommendations were included in Chapter 2 of 2025, the RAISE Act. This bill established the Maryland Office of Registered Apprenticeship Development, a new advisory board, and created 2 new programs, which are described on page 28. The first program, the Maryland Pay Per Apprentice Program, was launched by Labor in January as the Maryland Apprenticeship Incentive Program. The second program, the Registered Apprenticeship Qualified Intermediary Program, was launched late last month as the Industry Apprenticeship Accelerator. Both programs were launched with funding that was allocated to the Dedicated Purpose Account, or DPA, in fiscal 2023 for apprenticeship initiatives. In October 2025, Labor submitted a budget amendment to transfer $12 million to support these programs, as well as fund one-time technology infrastructure upgrades. Labor has indicated that they are planning on another $10 million transfer in fiscal 2027, which would leave $3 million remaining in the DPA. MD Labor should comment on plans for utilizing the remaining $3 million in the DPA. At the bottom of page 29 is a discussion on the Federal Government Employee Assistance Loan Fund. This fund was originally created to provide no-interest loans to federal government employees who are required to work in Maryland, but are not being paid due to a shutdown. Chapter 97 of 2025 expanded the purposes of this fund to include financial assistance for federal employees impacted by the closure, relocation, or mass layoff of a federal agency, and authorized a $5 million transfer from the Rainy Day Fund for fiscal 2025. While that transfer did not occur, Labor did submit a fiscal 2025 budget amendment to transfer just under $1 million from the catastrophic event account to administer the program. However, due to timing, it was not processed before fiscal year end, and Labor has reported that they intend to reprocess in fiscal 2026. Labor should comment on the timeline for submitting an updated fiscal 2026 budget amendment, as well as comment on the total amount needed from the CEA to cover program expenditures in fiscal 2026. As of February, Labor has made just over 3,600 loans through this program, totaling around $2.5 million. The vast majority of those was provided during the federal government shutdown in October and November of 2025. Recipients of those loans had until January 26th, 2026 to repay those loans, but as of February 23rd, a little under half has been repaid. Labor indicates that they intend to continue pursuing repayment for 90 days past the due date before sending them to DBM for collections. On page 31 is a list of recommended actions, all of which have been discussed earlier. Additionally, pages 32 to 34 provide updates on ARPA funds, Employment Advancement Right Now or Earn Maryland investments, as well as last year's Cyber Maryland transfer. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That's a lot. Thank you. Good job. Okay, do we want to have Secretary Portia Wu come on up to the table? Bring your people. That's a huge report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm joined here at the table by our Deputy Secretary, Jason Perkins-Cohen, who's also the Interim Director of Unemployment Insurance, Assistant Secretary Aaron Roth, who leads our Division of Workforce Development, Adult Learning, and our Budget Director, Jason Kramer. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Maryland Department of Labor's fiscal year 27 budget. I want to thank DLS analyst Connor Brown for his thorough and thoughtful analysis. And of course, thank you to the DBM and Maryland Labor budget teams. Maryland is at a pivotal moment. In this environment, we are focused on increasing support for Maryland's workforce, protecting Maryland workers and consumers, modernizing our systems, and increasing access to opportunity. And this budget reflects those priorities. I want to touch on several highlights. We have responded more thoroughly to all of the items raised by DLS in our written testimony, and of course are happy to answer any questions. In addition to the team here, we have other colleagues in the audience who can help with that. I want to lead first with talent, because that is key to our state's competitiveness. This budget invests in workforce for Maryland's growth sectors. It includes ongoing support for an expanded Earn Maryland program at a level that will train nearly 5,000 workers across high-demand industries. The additional investment provided last year supported expanding Earn, and that meant supporting industry partnerships that trained an additional 2,000 workers and served 200 more new employers, and this year's budget carries forward those expanded investments. I will note that studies have shown that Earn has a return of $19 of return on investment for every $1 invested. These investments also will support enough communities and prioritize SNAP recipients. The budget also targets Maryland's lighthouse sectors, specifically life sciences, IT, and aerospace. Through the Talent Innovation Fund and Cyber Maryland, we have now launched cyber ranges at all 16 community colleges, helping over 600 students who have already earned nearly 250 credentials. We also recently awarded grants for 3 cyber and AI clinics that will provide regional support around the state, which again is projected to train over 600 Marylanders and support over 60 employers. Speaking of AI, artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping the world of work, and Maryland has one of the highest percentages of AI-exposed jobs in the country. 2 weeks ago, the department announced $1.5 million to place college students and recent graduates into AI and lighthouse sector internships. In 2 weeks, we have already received requests for close to $1 million in applications. We also must support existing workers to gain these skills. A recent survey by the Governor's Workforce Development Board AI Working Group noted that small and medium-sized employers cited AI skills training as their top need. That is why this budget proposes the MD Train initiative, a targeted $2 million investment to help these employers to adopt AI tools responsibly while supporting and skilling up their existing workforce. This would require employers to have skin in the game and participate with 50-50 sharing. So we understand that it's important for government to support and encourage these investments. DLS has recommended eliminating funding for this initiative. We believe this investment is critical to supporting employers and building opportunity in our state, and we respectfully request the committee reject the DLS recommendation. Registered apprenticeship is also a key part of providing access to opportunity. In 2025, over 14,000 Marylanders participated in registered apprenticeships, including 5,000 new apprentices. The historic investment through the dedicated purpose account has enabled the launch of the aforementioned apprenticeship incentive program and an industry apprenticeship accelerator. These initiatives will focus on sectors like healthcare and finance and growing high school level apprenticeships in line with the blueprint's goals and with our industry growth sectors. We are already seeing strong demand for these programs, and we anticipate robust take-up. I want to note that these programs and these incentives will help us to expand successful programs like the one we're seeing with the Pax River Youth Apprenticeship that already has 50 to 70 each year youth apprentices who are working and be getting trained in aviation, assembly, fabrication, engineering, vital growth sectors like that. We believe we will be able to exhaust the additional $3 million from the DPA funds, and we will continue to adjust that strategy to deploy them in consultation with the Apprenticeship Advisory Committee that was created by the General Assembly. Adult education is another program administered by the department, and that serves Marylanders without a high school diploma or who are English language learners. On average, Marylanders with a high school diploma earn at least $10,000 more per year than those without one. Last year, we served over 31,000 learners at an average cost of about $500 per participant. DLS has recommended reducing funding for adult education by $400,000. The department has concerns with this recommended reduction because it will trigger the loss of an additional $850,000 in federal funds and elimination of services to over 2,000 Marylanders. I know we're in dialogue again with DLS to understand exactly how these are going to be focused, but we urge the committee not to adopt these cuts and to preserve funding to help thousands of Marylanders gain greater literacy and opportunity. While we're building the future workforce, we must also strengthen protections for Marylanders. The Office of Financial Regulation licensed nearly 18,000 financial service providers last year and resolved over 1,000 consumer complaints, securing more than $3 million in restitution for Marylanders, along with over $800,000 in penalties. In an increasingly complex financial landscape that includes digital assets, virtual currency, and also changes at the federal level in terms of oversight and regulation, strong state-level supervision matters more than ever, and the special funds included in this budget are critical to continuing that work. Similarly, the Division of Labor and Industry has more than doubled wage recoveries, recouping nearly $2 million last year for Maryland workers. Maryland Occupational Safety and Health, as you saw in the analysis, has increased its inspections and work in this area and continues to prioritize high-hazard industries and is preparing to implement the Davis-Martinez Act to strengthen health and safety protections for our public sector workers. We're also proud to highlight the department's assistance and response for federal workers and contractors who have been impacted with the changes in Washington. This includes assisting over 6,000 former feds or contractors who have come to our American Job Centers seeking help and providing weekly workshops to individuals who are looking to retool their resumes and find new jobs. We also have administered, as was noted, the Protect Our Federal Workers Act of 2025, providing critical assistance and over $2 million worth of zero-interest loans to thousands of federal employees during the federal shutdown. And we have reopened that program again during this partial shutdown. As was noted, we received funds in FY25. We're working with DBM on a budget amendment to address the FY26 transfers from the catastrophic event account. Because of the additional partial shutdown, we have been sort of working on the timing and reassessing how soon we will get the repayments and exactly what we will need to draw down from the account. We continue to work diligently to improve unemployment insurance and address the significant structural challenges we inherited. We have brought our call center back in-house, reducing costs by over $20 million per year and leveraging the skills and expertise of state staff to assist out-of-work Marylanders. With respect to overpayments, the department does not agree with the exact amount that is raised in the audit, but I want to note we have made significant progress in recovering funds, although most of those funds, I believe 90% of the overpayments that were identified in that audit all occurred during the prior administration. We've recovered in 2025 more than
Can
five.
I stop you just
Yes.
1 second? Isn't it hard to recover that?
That's part of the difficulty, is because many of them are beyond the statute of limitations. Maryland law says you can't establish a new overpayment more than 3 years old. And so, you know, when we came into office, there were already many pandemic era overpayments that were falling outside that window. And by the time because of the litigation and other legal issues, those processes had been paused. We had to reach legally compliant processes and notices to resume overpayments. And that's, as was alluded to, we were not able to do that till the fall of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
But I want to emphasize that we take our responsibility to recover whatever overpayments can be recovered very seriously. In 2025, we were able to recover over $520 million in overpayments and have restarted processes providing legally required notice and appeal rights. Thousands of individuals have already come forward. We sent additional notices last year to continue to try to recover what we can, looking back, and millions of dollars have already been recovered. Unfortunately, federal administrative funds have not kept pace with the actual cost of operating an unemployment insurance system. Last May, the federal government clawed back nearly $25 million in funding Maryland had intended to use to modernize and improve our UI infrastructure. Fortunately, the administrative fee that Maryland Labor will begin to collect this year is critical, and therefore we will continue to try to improve our UI systems to better serve both employers and claimants. Finally, family and medical leave insurance remains on track. Payroll deductions will begin in January 1, 2027. Benefits will be available in January 2028. We will be releasing contributions rates shortly. We are also going to be soft launching employer registration later this spring. It has been our experience that often government programs sort of appear and then people have to comply. We feel like it's very important to have employers provide feedback to make this as user-friendly a system and portal as possible. DLS asked for additional comments, and like I said, they are included in our written testimony. In closing, this budget reflects our prioritization. We're trying to be disciplined and invest where returns are strong and protect Marylanders at a time when federal protections are receding. It also continues the hard work of modernizing systems and serving Maryland workers, consumers, and businesses. Happy to answer any questions. We request support for maintaining the programs as noted in our budget.
Thank you. It was a lot to cover. I do want to say before we continue, your office has been so supportive when my staff calls. If we get somebody that calls in, they answer right away, and that is, for the years that I've been involved in this business, this is kind of the first time that we've had that kind of response. So quick and friendly, and your people are great, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Good
Chair. It's a
score
credit
for
to
you.
the team.
Yes. Senator Quarterman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Secretary, and your team for being here today. Right at the very end, as you closed off, you talked about modernization. It was actually interesting because I had a point to bring up here. The electronic licensing system, the modernized electronic licensing. I noticed in here a bunch of people have left on that project. And so I don't know if you could give us an update on that. Has the work even started? I think in the back here in the appendix, it said something like 3 out of the 4 people that were working on it have since moved on. It says they're still trying to have a completion of 27, but I said if you give an update, kind of where we're at with that, and most particularly, has it actually started yet?
Thank you, Senator. Absolutely. That's a really important project. And I think we often realize with these IT builds, there are a lot of pieces, and I appreciate what Secretary Savage said earlier about the importance and the support from her team. I literally fired off an email this morning and said to the team, I want to see an update and where are we going to be. Our goal is to stay on track. We have had some turnover, but we are already in active discovery. So, we have 26, I think it is, different occupations and professions licensed in OMP, and each of them has their own special thing. Locksmiths have to deal with a special kind of security. Real estate folks and accountants have different requirements for their industry. Sure. We already have a number in sort of like this initial discovery and testing. So we're drilling down, we're developing the blueprints, and the idea is to develop pilots to have ready later this year to be able to launch. We have, with the assistance of Do It, and also I have a chief digital product officer who's focused on this. It's very important. I will say, licensing and getting online is long overdue, but we cannot wait for that in order to be timely. And so I have asked the team to continue to try to improve our processes. The last report I got from them is, if people are able to submit a full package for their license, we really try to turn it around within a week. And we usually are able to do it if there aren't other outstanding problems. So that is the goal, is to continue to provide responsive service. We can also see people in person. We had gotten rid of some in-person services during the pandemic. We have a downstairs office open every single day in our new headquarters on South Charles Street, and individuals are able to come in there and receive service in person. Most of them are UI, but we also help people with their licensing.
Okay, no, thank you for the answer. One more question, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. It was kind of piggybacking on what the chair said earlier as far as the response of your staff, and I would echo that. I know that anytime our offices reached out, you guys have been great. That being said, I think what we're always trying to achieve is not getting to us to get to you, right? And so I guess my question is regards to, you gave us an update as far as changing over from the call center to bringing it back in-house, which I think is a good idea. I think there's probably a little bit of a staffing issue still there. And so I didn't know if you could comment on what the plan was as far as trying to bring more people on, get them onboarded, kind of what that staffing kind of thing looks like. And have you looked at any type of AI type of stuff also at the same time? So.
Absolutely, Senator. I mean, the advantage of bringing it in-house, we were spending, I think, $4 or $5 million a month on that outside contract. We knew in this time you cannot have state revenues doing that. We understand the need when there's a pandemic, but the disadvantage is it means we don't have the same kind of surge capacity. So when there are things like we send out 100,000 overpayment letters, got a lot of calls, and people did have to wait, and that's unfortunate. I agree. We're trying to get upstream, and that requires a bunch of things. For example, overhauling our website so it's more user-friendly. A lot of people complain, I can't even understand what you're asking me to do when I get this letter or when I go on your website. So doing that, I hope we can modernize our system, but with the loss of federal funds, that's going to have to wait. I will say we are looking at how we can responsibly use artificial intelligence tools. It's really important to me, however, and I know our local union president, Tim Walker, is here today, that we involve workers in that conversation, right? They're the experts. They're doing the work every day. You can always say tech is going to solve everything. That's not true. That's not how constituents feel. They don't feel happy often if they don't feel like they can work with a person. So we want to feel like how can we use, we want to examine how can we use AI to support our workforce so it can answer things more quickly, resolve situations. We are absolutely looking at it. We want to bring our staff along the way, and also make sure, we want to hear from you all, from businesses, from our claimants, what makes the most sense.
No, I appreciate that, and I think there's a balance between the two.
Absolutely.
And I guess back to the staffing thing, is there a goal in mind as far as a time frame of trying to bring that up to, well, I guess the first one would be, what do you consider of being not fully staffed, but like, there has to be internal goals, I'm assuming, like, we're here now, we want to get to here, we really like to get to here, type of thing.
I'll ask Deputy
And I'll leave that
Secretary
alone.
Perkins-Cohen to speak to
thank you,
it.
ma'am.
Yes.
Happy to jump in, and thank you again for the question. I think what's really helpful in our owning the control center ourselves is that we can essentially dial up or dial down the staff based on the call volume. So we can literally see the number of calls that come in at any given moment, how long they've been waiting, and we can sort of pull more staff to jump on the phones as we need them. And if we don't need them, then they can be doing other productive work, as opposed to if you had a call center and you were paying them to not answer the phones. The other great thing that we have, or good thing that we have, is that people can request a callback. So none of us, we're all consumers of one kind or another. None of us want to wait on hold very long at all. Our feature is that if you request a callback, we will call you back within one business day. We track that very carefully, and we're able to meet that goal.
But we are continuing to staff up, and we appreciated last year's reductions. There were requirements for personnel reductions imposed by the final budget passed by the General Assembly. There was an exception for unemployment insurance staff, and I would urge that as those issues are considered again, it's important that we need to continue to be able to hire up. Our current staffing, we lost 150 staff.
Oh, wow.
I want to say during the pandemic from unemployment insurance alone. Wow. So that is part of why we are simply not able to keep up, because we do not have, and all the claims have gotten more complicated, and there's way more fraud, or at least suspected fraud. So we used to be tops in the nation practically in timeliness. We've really fallen below that. We're getting close to national average, but we need to staff up.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in your report, I wanted to point out, thank you all for coming, but I wanted to point out your youth apprentice program with the base Patuxent Naval Air Station.
Yes.
And I'm going to just give you a little kudos here on this, because it really does work, right? You take these children from K-12, right? They're identified, whether they go to the College of Southern Maryland or USMSM, and the base is a part of it, all being sort of coordinated with Patuxent Partnership. And I appreciate that. Is that the only place that something of that model is taking place in Maryland? Or is that occurring other places to that degree?
It's certainly occurring other places. I'm going to ask Assistant Secretary Roth if she'd like to chime in.
Sure, I would say it's certainly occurring other places, and we want more. That's a great example. We're helping young people get into the career earlier. It's helping employers fill a productive need. In terms of aerospace and defense and some of the occupations that are occurring at Pax River, I think that is the example. But we really see an opportunity to expand that, and some of our lighthouse sector initiatives, and really the apprenticeship investment, seek to build on that model and expand it, scale it, et cetera.
I would say the incentive program actually it provides because it's expensive for employers, and they also it's more challenging sometimes to figure out, how do I incorporate a high school student into my workflow? We put an extra incentive for people who want to work with high schoolers, because we recognize we really want to reward and support employers that are willing to extend that hand and work with our high school students.
So I greatly appreciate what you're doing, and I know a lot of people in that realm, and they all talk about it. But the challenge that they have is the fact of the security clearances, right? Because we're talking about defense. right? And that is one thing that I think it is important to note, that we need to work diligently on trying to figure out, because there are some projects when they go to work for some of these employers that, as much as they'd want to get them involved, it would be a violation if they were involved. Right, and so there's some things that they could maybe do if we looked at that a little bit more thorough. And then just to follow up, Madam Chair, your youth apprenticeship with law enforcement, right? I mean, that's a big deal, because it really helps law enforcement learn early on that they can become a career rather than just a job. Right, if you get them at the right age, that type of scenario. And I was surprised to hear of the impending cuts in that. If you could just speak about that for a moment.
I can start with that. Actually, so with the GAPS Act, we sort of retooled that, because actually we had very low uptake in this arena. The reason there's a reduction in this current fiscal year is simply because of the lack of uptake, but it's actually, I think we have $260,000 or roughly of requests already. So the good news is it's ramped up. It hasn't ramped up as much as we had appropriated for in this fiscal year, but our intention is to continue, promoting that, and we are seeing growth, and we have some others in the pipeline as well. So it's simply just a matter of timing. This fiscal year, we recognize if we're not able to spend it this fiscal year, we should return it, but we do want to continue to increase that, absolutely.
And I would just add to the Secretary's remarks that we just retooled and launched that program in May 2025. And so we're working with a lot of stakeholders in the law enforcement, firefighting sectors to help them access those funds. So far, Anne Arundel County Detention Center, I hope I got that correct, is the big uptake right now. The other, I really appreciate your comments on the security clearance barrier and welcome partnership and working through that. One idea that we can follow up with perhaps is, of course, I understand that that's in like the aerospace sector, but that also comes up from time to time in cybersecurity, for example. So we've been working to understand how to overcome that. We have partnered with employers who have creatively figured that out. I believe AT&T, for example, is one of those employer partners with Howard Community College. So perhaps we can take it back with our team and see if there's some learning that could be applied to the Pax River partnership.
Yeah. We plan to use Cyber Maryland to try to figure out, can we pull people together to help young people, for example, be getting training and work experience while they're waiting for a clearance to help, because we know it's a huge block or an impediment.
So we just launched that at CSM right there with the cyber range. So not to belabor the point, but I definitely think that we can move forward with that and make that opportunity much more available for a lot of people, so it can become more successful than it already is.
Would love to do that. Look forward to the
Thanks.
conversation. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. We have two witnesses here, Ruth Toomey and Tim Walker. Maybe just Tim Walker. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tim Walker. I work with Maryland Department of Labor as a case manager for Veteran Services, helping veterans get jobs. Today, I'm testifying as a proud president of ASME Local 3641. We represent employees in the Maryland Department of Labor. Our members perform in a variety of crucial functions that power our economy and make sure workers throughout Maryland are protected. We provide training opportunities and help people find work. We ensure when they lose their jobs, they stay afloat with unemployment insurance. We enforce laws concerning occupational safety and health, wage and hour, workplace fraud, and more. Our union appreciates the work that the department has taken to ensure the UI call centers contract and for providing ASRs for the OSHA compliance officers. wage and hour investigators as well. However, our members continue to face challenges each day on the job. Our members of the Division of Workforce Development experience high workloads, insufficient staff to support the important work that we do. And also, you know, we appreciate the recent increases in PINs for workplace fraud investigators, but there are simply not enough positions for this amount of work. These workers have responsibilities to ensure workers are not being misclassified, and in turn, the employers are not skirting their responsibilities to pay relevant taxes, unemployment insurance contributions, and workers' compensation premiums. In fiscal year 25 alone, the UI division identified over 52 million in unreported taxable wages due to workplace fraud. Our members save the state money by keeping workers gainfully employed, helping people stay out of poverty, and when they lose their job, ensuring employers pay their fair share of taxes, but properly classifying their employees and keeping the workers safe. Investing in the state of employees is investing in our economy. We urge the committee to support the compensation for our members and invest in DOL. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Comments? I think we're good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Is he on the list? Oh, Brad Phillips, come on up. I'm sorry I missed you. Ruth,
I apologize, I signed up for the wrong one. I'm on Commerce.
okay.
It's been a long session.
Yes, it has.
Well, Madam Chair, I'll be brief. Great to see you again, and members of the committee. My name is Brad Phillips, and I am here on behalf of Maryland's 16 community colleges. And before I begin, I just also want to thank our relationship that we have with the Department of Labor. They meet with senior leaders at my colleges every month, and you've heard some great examples of some of the things we've been able to accomplish. And we really appreciate that relationship. And that's why I'm here for one of the things today, and that is just to put an asterisk, pick your punctuation with what the secretary said when it comes to specifically high school external program, or what we call adult basic education. I was glad to hear in the secretary's testimony that she's working with you, Mr. Brown, fully understanding this relationship, but the threat of losing $400,000 that would put into question the federal maintenance of effort would be very harmful to Maryland's community colleges and the relationship we have in adult basic education. It would definitely increase wait lists for adult basic education programs. It would definitely even result in fewer courses that are being offered. And this would ultimately harm the very sort of people who are trying to get into the workplace. We're uniquely positioned to actually offer these courses so they can seamlessly transition into other pathways for employment. And we just really urge caution with any further reductions to this program. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm glad you came and said that, actually.
Welcome. Good to see you again.
Okay, I think that does it. The next one we have is the Department of Commerce. Elizabeth Weibel is our analyst, and Secretary Harry Coker, Jr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fiscal 2027 allowance for the Department of Commerce totals $283 million, which is a $20.5 million decrease from the fiscal 2026 working budget. The chart on the first page also shows that there was lower spending in 2025 than expected. There were special funds in several programs that were underutilized. There's some discussion of this on pages 4 and 5, and there were various reasons that the funds weren't used. But CLS has asked Commerce to comment on why the programs were underutilized and what is being done to ensure that appropriated funding is reaching the intended recipients. On page 6, there's an update on the fiscal 2026 budget. Last year's budget bill included a provision restricting $250,000 from the Child Care Capital Loan Fund for MHBE to conduct a survey and outreach to child care workers. This was attached to the special fund appropriation. However, that is not an allowable use of the special fund. So DLS recommends adopting a buffer provision to make that an allowable use for fiscal 26 only, just to enact or to effectuate that provision in last year's budget bill. The budget bill also includes proposed personnel deficiencies of about $800,000 and a fund swap in more jobs for Marylanders to reduce general fund spending and utilize a special fund balance. Page 7 has an overview of the fiscal 2027 allowance. Business development receives $83 million. This includes the Cannabis Business Assistance Fund, Build Our Future, Industry 4.0, as well as some pass-through funding from Medco. DLS has 2 recommendations in this area, which are on page 8. First, the Build Our Future grant program, which provides funds for infrastructure and workforce development in eligible technology sectors. DLS recommends reducing funding from $7 million to $3.5 million due to the state's budget constraints, as well as the similarity to some other state programs. And then in the Strategic Infrastructure and Revolving Loan Fund, a program in Medco, this provides loans for real estate and infrastructure projects with a focus on underutilized properties. This program is still in development and has not started using its fiscal 2026 funds, so DLS recommends reducing that funding from $10 million to $5 million. The Industry 4.0 fund, or excuse me, the Industry 4.0 program is level funded at $2 million, which is above the mandated $1 million. Moving on to the financial assistance programs, this receives $64 million total. Tax credits then receive $44 million. This area includes the Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Account, as well as MEDAF or Advantage Maryland and Ms. BIDFA, as well as a number of tax credits. This also includes the Child Care Capital Fund. In this area, DLS recommends reducing funding for the Biotechnology Incentive Investment Tax Credit from $12 million to $10 million. This is due to lower utilization of this program in recent years. The awards have been averaging about $6 million annually. In the arts funding area, the Maryland State Arts Council receives $32 million, of which $28 million is for grants. There's a funding formula and statute that requires general funds for MSAC to increase each year by the percentage that general fund revenues are projected to increase. Due to the state's structural deficit, we had looked at some of these long-term funding mandates, and we are at DLS recommending a BRFA provision to require level funding rather than increasing funding for MSAC each year. And DLS also recommends reducing the fiscal 2027 general funds to level with the fiscal 26 working appropriation. MSAC also receives a $1 million annual distribution from the state admissions and amusement tax. And DLS is recommending a buffer provision eliminating that distribution and redirecting the revenue to the general fund. Page 10 shows the proposed budget change. Most programs are level funded. There is a $2.5 million grant to Medco to support a company called Prieto Battery moving to Maryland. There's also an increase in grant funding for the Maryland Tech Council for BioHub Maryland. That increases from $500,000 to $2 million. And DLS recommends level funding that with fiscal 26. There was also a data entry error that resulted in Ms. BIDFA management fees being included twice in the budget, and DLS recommends deleting the unneeded amount. There was also a $10 million decrease in the budget due to the end of mandated funding for the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Program. The mandate for the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra funding has also ended, but that is partially offset by a planned $500,000 grant for the organization. Moving to the issues section on page 14 discusses the More Jobs for Marylanders program. This provides tax credits for businesses that create and maintain qualified jobs. Enrollment for the program closed in 2024, but the costs of the program are still really difficult to project. There's a cap on the first year of benefits, but no cap on later years, and companies can claim 5 to 10 years of credits, but there's no deadline on when companies need to file with Commerce to claim the benefits. Exhibit 3 shows sort of the maximum projections of spending under this program. Under these projections, the spending for tax credits will be well over $100 million by 2030. However, if you look at Exhibit 4, this shows kind of the projections versus how many tax credits have actually been awarded. So these are lower, but they are still increasing. Overall, there is a lot of uncertainty around how much this program will cost and how long the state will be paying for it. So DLS is recommending a BRFA provision that would cap the annual value of tax credits that may be awarded at $15 million each year, and require that available funding be prorated among companies. DLS is also recommending establishing a sunset date in statute of 2037 to give companies a deadline to apply and provide some predictability in that program. A discussion of the Sunny Day Fund is on page 16. The allowance includes $16 million in general funds for the Sunny Day Fund, which is level with fiscal 2026. Plans for 2026 spending have not yet been announced, but Commerce reports it is working with several companies that it intends to request funding for, and it is also in discussions with companies for the proposed 2027 funding. DLS recommends deleting the 2027 funding due to the state's fiscal condition, and since plans for 2026 funding have not yet been finalized. There's some history of the program on page 17, including how it has been used in past years. The Legislative Policy Committee must currently approve uses of the Sunny Day Fund. However, there's a provision in the Decade Act that will require LPC notification rather than approval and allow Commerce to determine how funds are used. This could increase utilization of the fund and make it a little more quicker to use, but also would reduce legislative oversight. The film production tax credit is discussed on page 18. DLS conducted an evaluation of this tax credit over the interim that recommended terminating the program. And DLS is proposing a BRFA provision that would sunset the tax credit. One other budget consideration to keep in mind with this program, there is a $12 million annual limit on how many tax credits Commerce can certify. In recent years, much less has been certified than the limit, typically below $5 million. And then that unused amount of the annual limit rolls over to the next year. So Exhibit 7 on page 19 shows in the green part of the bar chart how much has been rolled over. As of fiscal 26, there's about $35 million available in addition to the $12 million annual authorization. So there is a provision in the Decade Act that would remove the $10 million per production cap. So a single film or TV show could get more than $10 million. However, that rollover amount would be available. So it could be used to attract a large production, but could also mean a pretty big chunk of foregone revenue. The DLS recommendations are summarized on pages 21 and 22. That concludes my presentation, and I can take any questions you have.
Nice job. Thank you very much. Except I'm a little worried about that tax credit. Any comments from the? Yeah.
But try to give you options.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Come on up. Mr. Secretary, bring your team here.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair King and subcommittee members. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. And for the record, I am Maryland Commerce Secretary Harry Coker, and I'm testifying in support of the Commerce Department's proposed fiscal 2027 budget. I'm joined at the table by Deputy Secretary Ricardo Ben, Deputy Secretary Steve Rice, Acting Managing Director Marcy Ross, Executive Director Stephen Scarrett Davis, and Managing Director Jen Lahat. All of this team can help answer any questions or address any concerns that you all may have.
Thank you.
Before I get started, we want to sincerely thank Elizabeth Weibel and the entire DLS team for their always thoughtful review and analysis of our budget. We appreciate your work. I will keep my testimony fairly brief, but I do want to begin by acknowledging the mission. Economic development is ultimately about creating the conditions for Marylanders in every region of our state to prosper. And when our economy grows, it strengthens the foundation that allows state, county, and municipal governments to deliver the services that our residents expect and deserve. From strong schools, safe communities, modern infrastructure, and opportunity for the next generation. But economic growth does not simply happen. It requires intentional strategy, sustained partnership, and investment. Our competitor states continue to invest aggressively to attract industries, to grow their workforce, and to position themselves for the future. And we intend for Maryland to compete, and that is why we are equally clear-eyed about the importance of strategic economic investment. Put simply, economies that invest in growth grow, and economies that hesitate watch opportunity go and grow elsewhere. The Department of Commerce is focused on ensuring that Maryland is positioned to compete, building on the strategic sectors that will define the coming decade, while continuing to support the small businesses, manufacturers, tourism operators, and cultural institutions that power our local economies. Tourism and the arts are a particularly important part of that story. Tourism benefits communities from the Eastern Shore to Western Maryland and throughout the Baltimore-Washington corridor to the north and to the south. And the arts are not simply cultural assets, they are economic assets. Maryland's creative sector supports jobs, drives tourism and local spending, and contributes meaningfully to the vitality and to the wellness of our communities. We recognize that when people choose where to locate their businesses, where to live, where to visit, and where to invest, they are choosing more than an economy. They are choosing a place. And Maryland's culture, history, arts, and natural beauty are central to that choice. The FY27.
Let me interrupt just 1 second. I think we have fought for this film tax credit since I came to the legislature 100 years ago. So it seems every year that's one of the fights we have.
Yes, and we appreciate your support, and we intend to continue the fight. So thank you for that. The FY27 Commerce budget reflects a balanced approach, investing in growth, supporting our communities, and ensuring that Maryland remains competitive in a rapidly evolving national and global economy. And with that context, I look forward to presenting the department's FY27 budget. In accordance with our balanced approach to mission outcomes, we have clocked numerous economic development wins over the past year, including NatureCell, which is establishing a new stem cell research facility and 500 jobs in Baltimore City. New Cold, which is bringing more than 100 new jobs to Washington County. Governor Moore's Capital of Quantum initiative, which has already attracted more than $500 million in major quantum investments, including bringing new DARPA and Microsoft facilities to the Discovery District in College Park. And we saw a landmark announcement from AstraZeneca, which is investing $2 billion to expand manufacturing operations in Frederick and Montgomery counties. More recently, in January, we announced Sphere was bringing a new 6,000 seat entertainment venue to National Harbor, and that project is projected to have an annual economic impact of $1.5 billion and create thousands of.
Can you just tell me quick what that will involve? What will that Sphere have? What services?
It will provide an experience, is what they call it, from live performances by entertainers to movies, but also it allow offsites to be there. For example, the original Sphere, the only operational Sphere in Vegas, major corporations come there to have executive offsites and the like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a unique 4D as opposed
yeah, I'm
to 2D.
anxious to see it.
As are we, ma'am, and we appreciate that. And on that point, this would be the third Sphere in the world. Maryland is in the same sentence as Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi, and that is significant. But those are just a few examples, and there really are many more to come. Our team has developed a robust pipeline of business attraction, business expansion, and foreign direct investment opportunities with the potential to yield billions of dollars in capital investments and thousands of new jobs. We are also attracting more private investment to Maryland's business community including our innovative high-growth lighthouse industries. And there is a multiplier effect due to the transformative nature of the economic growth from those key sectors. And that will produce growth across our economy and attract major new investment. An investment in these sectors will help protect funding for education, public safety, public health, housing, and more. And as we face another challenging budget gap during this legislative session, it is more important than ever that we maintain and increase our economic development momentum. Commerce's legislative priorities this session focus on sharpening the tools in Maryland's economic development toolbox, enhancing programs at Commerce and other agencies to make them more focused and more effective. We're actually in the process of doing a return on investment assessment of each of our 30 incentive programs. Our proposed 2027 operating budget allowance totals $267.2 million, and this includes $130.4 million in general funds and $125.6 million in special funds and $11.1 million in federal funds. The proposed budget includes $17.5 million for Advantage Maryland, or MEDAF, our primary direct assistance program. It also includes $12 million to fund the Biotechnology Investment Incentive Tax Credit, or BITC, a high-demand program that is supporting investment of one of Maryland's most important industry sectors. $7 million for the Build Our Future Innovation Infrastructure Program, which provides matching grants to stimulate growth in key technology sectors. $2 million for the Manufacturing 4.0 grant program, which provides matching funds for small and mid-sized manufacturers to invest in advanced technology. $2.2 million for the Child Care Capital Support Revolving Loan Fund Program, which brings the total amount available for this program to $10 million. $32 million for income tax credit reserve funds for the More Jobs for Marylanders incentive program. It includes funds for some of our most important small business assistance programs, including $14.2 million for Ms. BITSFA and over $20 million for the Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Account. And it includes $18.9 million for tourism development and $30.5 million for the Maryland State Arts Council. Tourism and arts are not only important economic drivers in and of themselves, but again, they are crucial to our business and workforce attraction efforts. There's also $16 million to recapitalize the state's Sunny Day Fund, enabling Maryland's strategic economic growth by attracting major businesses and creating jobs and investments. That's the overview. And now I'd like to turn to the DLS recommendations, which we have included in our full written responses with our written testimony. And I'll just note that while we concur with 2 recommendations regarding a sunset date for the More Jobs for Marylanders tax credit program, as well as the deletion of the duplicated funding that was included in the error, we respectfully disagree on several recommendations that we'll walk through. And each of the proposed cuts would hinder Commerce's ability to attract new investment to our state, to spur job creation, and to strengthen and grow our economy. First, Commerce was asked to comment on utilization of several programs, and our detailed response has been included in our testimony. Second, regarding the Child Care Capital Support Revolving Loan Fund, DLS recommends adopting a BRFA provision authorizing an outreach campaign and survey as an allowable use from the special fund in fiscal 2026. Commerce respectfully disagrees. The outreach campaign and survey have already been completed. There was no request for Commerce to transfer funds to support this effort. Therefore, we do not feel a BRFA provision is necessary and would prefer not to alter the statute. Third, DLS recommends reducing funds for the Build Our Future grant program from $7 million to $3.5 million, citing the state's budget situation and asserting that this program is similar to other state programs. Commerce respectfully disagrees. This program is specifically designed to boost investment in 12 important technology fields that are aligned with the state's strategic emphasis on the lighthouse sectors: quantum, computational biology, and position and navigation and timing. The matching grants through this program are used to defray cost of eligible innovation infrastructure projects. The program requires businesses and higher education institutions to invest at least twice the amount of the state grant, or 4 times the state grant for larger projects. This is about leveraging investment, and any reduction to this appropriation for the program represents losses in additional investment by potential grantees. Build Our Future Grants has been an extremely popular program and consistently receives applications totaling well beyond the grant funding that's available. The grant funds are often the final dollars these companies need to be able to fund their projects, so a reduction in appropriation means projects that will not be completed and private investment and spending in Maryland's economy that will be lost. Fourth, DLS recommends reducing funds for the Strategic Infrastructure Revolving Loan Program fund from $10 million to $5 million, stating that the program has not yet launched or started encumbering its fiscal 2026 appropriation. Commerce respectfully disagrees. This is a program that's still in development in fiscal 2026, and while funds have not yet been awarded, MEDCO has term sheets and proposals in progress that would account for the full FY 2026 appropriation. Both MEDCO and Commerce are in active discussions with projects that would use the additional $10 million proposed for fiscal 2027. Fifth, DLS recommends reducing the appropriation for the Biotechnology Investment Incentive Tax Credit, or BITSI, by $2 million due to low program utilization. Commerce respectfully disagrees. While utilization of the BITSI program has been lower than projected, the program remains oversubscribed at the initial application stage. Commerce recommends maintaining the current appropriation of $12 million as demand for the program has consistently been beyond $12 million when application review begins. Additionally, Commerce has been coordinating with DBM through the budget development process each year to ensure that minimal general funds are utilized to maintain the reserve fund balance. This will again be the case if fiscal 2027 utilization falls short. 6, DLS recommends reducing the general fund appropriation for the Maryland State's Arts Council to $29.3 billion, level with the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. DLS also suggests a BRFA provision requiring a level rather than a general fund allowance each year, than an increased general fund allowance each year. Commerce respectfully disagrees. Public investment in the arts grows the state economy by creating jobs, generating local and visitor spending, and maintaining a quality of life that supports business attraction and retention. Companies choose Maryland as a place to invest and grow, in part because of its historically strong arts sector, which offers a wide range of cultural opportunities for professionals and their families. The arts also support positive health outcomes for youth, older adults, veterans, and vulnerable populations. And while the department appreciates the state's fiscal condition, a reduction in funding to MSAC today will result in a reduction in the department's ability to attract and retain businesses and to ensure that no Marylander is left behind. 7th, DLS recommends eliminating the $1 million admission and amusement tax distribution and redirecting the revenue to the general fund. Commerce respectfully disagrees. Legislation passed in 2016 formalizes the transfer of these funds to the Maryland State's Arts Council. And as resources have tightened, this revenue has bolstered MSAC's ability to provide stabilizing operating support through its largest program, grants for organizations. Removing the tax distribution at this stage would result in a potential decrease of at least 5% per grant, thereby widening the funding gap and creating a ripple effect that destabilizes arts jobs and organizations and compromises an important selling point for businesses looking to call Maryland home. Next, DLS recommends reducing the BioHub Maryland funding to its fiscal 2026 level due to the state's fiscal situation. Commerce respectfully disagrees. BioHub Maryland helps Marylanders of all backgrounds pursue rewarding careers in life sciences by offering biopharma manufacturing skills training, career resources, and access to hundreds of jobs openings across the state. A strong biomanufacturing workforce is the greatest need identified by Maryland's life sciences industry, and BioHub Maryland opened its biopharmaceutical workforce training center in Rockville just in the fall of 2024. Additionally, the final FY 2026 allowance was itself a reduction from the $2 million initially proposed by the governor that year. An additional reduction this year will once again result in a shortfall of funding that's necessary for BioHub to be successful. This continued funding will ensure the success of the center by providing specialized training and education, thereby supporting economic development and enhancing Maryland's competitiveness in the global market. Next, DLS recommends adopting a BRFA provision to cap the annual value of more jobs for Marylanders tax credit certificates that may be awarded at $15 million and require that available funding be prorated among qualified companies. Commerce respectfully disagrees. Such a cap would result in a significant retraction of previously committed incentive funding offered to companies to choose to locate and expand here in Maryland. Companies relied on our commitments to influence their location and expansion decisions. Commerce is concerned that these companies and others will no longer trust the commitments made by the state and choose not to consider Maryland for future growth and expansion due to a perceived lack of credibility. In order to provide certainty as to a final termination of the program benefits, Commerce concurs with a sunset date of 30 June 2037. This will allow the department to communicate to all businesses that are enrolled in the program of the upcoming date and ensure that businesses have the opportunity to claim a full 10-year of benefits before it is terminated. Next, DLS recommends removing the fiscal 2027 allowance for the Sunny Day Fund, in part because plans for fiscal 2026 funding have not been finalized. For fiscal 2026, Commerce has 3 major projects with active Sunny Day applications in advanced stages of development. Commerce expects to completely exhaust the funds in this account. Eliminating FY 27 Sunny Day funding will jeopardize 1 existing and 1 new project representing $3.3 billion in total capital expenditures and 4,272 total jobs. Furthermore, eliminating Sunny Day fund for FY 27 would send a strong negative signal to the business community that Maryland is not interested in supporting very large projects that could have an outsized impact on our state's economy. Our neighboring states have similar programs, which means the Sunny Day Fund is critical for trying to create a level playing field within the region. Finally, DLS recommends sunsetting the film production activity tax credit at the end of fiscal year 26. Commerce respectfully but emphatically disagrees. This would effectively end a large-scale production in the state and dismantle an industry that's been built over decades. This is not a subsidy without return. The tax credit pays for itself, sustains thousands of Maryland jobs, and keeps the state competitive in a global marketplace. Our written testimony goes into detail about the 7 major productions that received tax credits between fiscal 2019 and fiscal 2025. They supported jobs for 892 Marylanders, spent more than $56 million directly in our state, and generated over $95 million in total economic impact per project, and produced $6.53 in direct Maryland spending for every $1 in tax credit issued. Chair King and members of the committee, again, thank you for the opportunity to present this budget and for your continued partnership in strengthening Maryland's economy. Economic growth is not simply a priority for the Department of Commerce. It is a mechanism that enables Maryland to deliver for its people. A strong economy generates the revenue that supports education, public safety, healthcare, transportation, and the many services that Maryland families depend on every day. But economic vitality is about more than numbers. It's about the character and energy of our communities. Tourism brings visitors from around the country and around the world to experience Maryland's landscapes, heritage, and hospitality. The arts enrich our communities, strengthen our sense of identity and pride, and contribute profoundly to individual wellness and quality of life. These sectors help define Maryland not only as a place to do business, but as a place where people want to live, want to work, want to raise families, and want to build their futures. Economic development is ultimately about stewardship, ensuring that Maryland remains competitive, vibrant, and full of opportunity for the generations that follow us. We sincerely appreciate the partnership of the Subcommittee and the General Assembly, and we respectfully request that you approve Commerce's fiscal 2027 budget as submitted.
Thank you very much. Covered a lot.
Yeah.
Senator Quarterman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and first of all, thank you, as always, for everyone being here, and thank you for the wealth of information. I did want to touch on two things here. One, I knew I was going to talk about. The other one kind of came up organically during your conversation. That would be the more jobs for Marylanders. And we've had conversations in the past about this, and I understand there's been challenges with the program. But in the part of the state where I live, the people that I represent, that program is very important. And so I appreciate the pushback on the cap. I'm disappointed to hear that you would agree to the sunset. What I would like to know is what your opinion is on removing the Tier 2 counties, because that always seems to be the rub. The Tier 1s is where it's needed. The Tier 1s is where we see the most return on investment, in my opinion. The numbers get inflated, or whatever you want to call it, because as you know, the Tier 2s, and I don't want to call out any companies, but they come in the metropolitan areas, they're already coming anyways. And so they take advantage of that, and I understand that, and I think that's what we need to eliminate. The parts of the state that I live in, that the senator from St. Mary's lives in, our folks on the Eastern Shore, they rely on this program. I know that you know that because I know that you see the opportunities and successes we've had in that part of the world. So I guess, again, my question to you is, what is the department's feeling on eliminating the Tier 2 but allowing the Tier 1s to stay? Now, I'm asking you, Mr. Secretary.
And I'll let the experts go first, and I'll weigh in and summarize, sir.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to clarify on the cap. The program has already been sunset to new enrollments. Mm-hmm. So what we're concurring with is setting a essentially final sunset date on the awarding of tax
I understand
credits.
what we're doing. We're putting a nail in the coffin. I get it.
Yes, so that it's not
Still not
carrying
happy
forward.
about that.
I understand. And the one reason we did concur with it is because that sunset date is far enough out that it gives us plenty of time to work with the companies that are enrolled to ensure that they get into the program and are able to claim the benefits that they have earned, assuming that they have done the hiring that they indicated that they would do, and get the full 10-year benefit time. But we did agree that it was time to put a final end date on it because there has not been anything to date to require those enrolled businesses to actually apply for the tax credits and start receiving them. So this could continue on in perpetuity if we didn't put a final date on it. Mm-hmm. But I'll let the secretary and others speak to the rest.
And appreciate the concern, sir, and frankly, share some of your concern. During our visits, well, I guess I should lead in. We are in the midst of doing a return on investment assessment of all 30 incentive programs under the purview of the Department of Commerce. That includes loans, grants, and tax credits. Mm-hmm. When we complete that assessment, we'll share our findings and we'll provide recommendations on how to enhance, tweak, or sunrise the programs, the incentive offerings that we don't think are worthwhile. With regards to your specific concern, one of the themes during our county visits is precisely what you mentioned about how that could impact the rural communities, if you will. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a representative from Worcester County come brief the governor's economic competitiveness sub-cabinet and talk about the need to take a look at regionalization, if you will, of some of these programs. We took that for action, the entire GECS, and we are going to take a look at that, sir. So we don't take that concern lightly, and we will be taking a look at it.
Okay, I appreciate that. And to follow up on the additional point there, Madam Chair, and it goes along the same theme in regards to the regionality and the overall theme of, I guess as we talk a lot down here about One Maryland and what the administration talks about of leave no one behind. And, you know, I appreciate you said earlier about how looking from Western Maryland to the Eastern Shore, or whatever you put in there, but you specifically said Western Maryland, which is obviously the part of the state that I represent. And I guess my question to you is to the administration, when we talk about economic development and we talk about the Western Maryland Economic Investment Fund, also known as the George Edwards Fund, who was a member of this committee for many, many years, and when we continued that fund last year by legislation and are advised by the administration that we can't mandate the funding, but to keep the fund going. And then when the budget comes out this year, we see that West North Avenue gets their money. We see Bernie gets their money. We see Ned gets their money. You know who doesn't get any money? It's a Western Maryland Economic Investment Fund. So I have a hard time when the administration comes before us and tells us how they're looking out for the Western Maryland or the Eastern Shore and everywhere in between when they don't provide us the funding. And so I'd be curious as far as where, because that's in your wheelhouse, that's in the Department of Commerce, of where that conversation came from your department to the administration. I've had conversations with the governor. The governor's been in this room before saying that he supported that fund. Talk is one thing, but when we look in the budget and there's no money, that actions speak louder than words. So I would be curious as far as, you know, where you guys came into that conversation, because again, as I see here, there is no funding. And to me, that doesn't look like there was any real effort from the administration other than saying that they support these things. But again, lack of funding speaks louder.
I hear you, Senator, and just one slight clarification is the funds were budgeted within Commerce, but we are a pass-through for that funding. So it did not necessarily come up in the development of our budget because when we are developing the budget, we're working specifically with the Commerce programs.
Now, and I get that. I don't mean to cut you off, and maybe the question's back to the Secretary.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to believe, and if this isn't accurate, then that's a bigger problem, that a conversation about this fund came up at a certain point in time with yourself and the administration. I mean, you're the Secretary of Commerce. This is the Western Maryland Economic Investment Fund that's been funded $10 million a year for the last 4 years. And the fact that there's no money in it at all, and I appreciate your comments, it's not on you, what was the conversation? That's all that I'm asking. I mean, how did we get to a point of we're going to fund this thing to, I mean, zero is what we're talking about. But all these other investment funds across the state were all quote unquote level funded or fully funded. But there is zero for Western Maryland. And that, I think you understand my concern there.
Yep. I appreciate your concerns and the question. We recognize the need to support investment across the state. And in some cases, and frankly, we had a bit of a discussion on the rural economy in yesterday's briefing. We recognize we need to do more on that front. Commerce is committed to continue to advocate for that, given, again, the diversity of our state from a geographic and economic perspective. And we know we need to continue to press, and we will press on targeted investment for certain regions that are oftentimes overlooked.
All right, but no, and I appreciate that, and I hope you keep that in consideration as we move forward in additional budget years. Because I mean, the only other opportunity to do is to start removing funds from other areas of the state for more, as we like to say, equity and equality across the state. And we're not seeing that right now in Western Maryland. So I would appreciate your advocacy and appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with you on that.
I can assure you of my advocacy, sir, and I'd look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Secretary, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but I just want to, before I go there. Jen, is this your last time in front of us?
It is.
Well, we wish you very well. We wanted to say thank you very much for all your work and all the work that you've done with each and every one of our offices. And so if you need something, we'll be here for you.
I know where to find you.
But we really don't want to hear you celebrating out in the hallway.
So back to you, Mr. Secretary.
Yes,
I didn't want to forget that, Jen.
Yep, I appreciate that.
But when we talk about economic development, when we talk about strategic investments, and in rural areas, right, coming from Pax River, from St. Mary's County, where when we look at the Department of Defense and we look federally, that just us and Anne Arundel County, right, we get a third of all the federal grants that come to the state of Maryland, right, come there. I deal with all these small businesses and all these startups all the time that are thriving. And I go to these meetings with the Patuxent Partnership, with the Navy Alliance, all of them, and the common thread is Maryland doesn't care about us, right? They're like, they don't help us, and we do all our lobbying in the federal realm, because Maryland, and now with the way some things have gone with taxes, these businesses are all contemplating potentially, as we've seen some of them left this year. What strategic investments have we made in the last year and in the current budget to go towards defense, the #1 industry in Maryland?
Appreciate the comment and really and the sentiment of folks in Southern Maryland, to include St. Mary's and Anne Arundel County. I'm surprised and disappointed that anyone there, or frankly across Maryland, would think that the state doesn't care. We are sincere in wanting to have all of us prosper and have economic development across the state. But as it pertains to Southern Maryland, we have been and are participating in discussions with the Department of Defense on opportunities there.
Have you or your team, is anybody familiar with a grant that you awarded just in the last year for us down there? I know I just asked this question to TEDCO, and they were like, well, we haven't done it in years, right? I'm very curious as to know why, if we are such a financial driver, why this isn't being addressed.
Yeah. Senator, thank you for the question. We can definitely circle back. We didn't do a report, candidly, to run our assistance programs and benchmark it against different counties, cities, or regions of the state, but we can get you that information. We're very committed to supporting not only your county, but Southern Maryland. And in fact, we unfortunately, we had our Southern Maryland representative retired, but we are onboarding a new Southern Maryland representative within our Division of Regional Development. So you will see more engagement on behalf of, from the state of Maryland and the Department of Commerce within your communities in short order. We have spent time down there supporting businesses. I was with Platform Aerospace and did a tour of the assets that you have, very familiar with Pax River. The Secretary's been down there as well. So we have our ear to the ground to the concerns that community has, and we are doing our level best to be supportive. If there are specific, companies that need attention from Commerce, please, our door is open. We'd love to hear. But we're targeted on not just your area, but when you look at our lighthouse sectors, aerospace and defense is one of the strategic industries for the state of Maryland. And based upon the data and the research, if we can succeed in aerospace and defense and leverage our current ecosystems, then that actually benefits the entire state's economy. So it is to the Secretary's point, we're definitely disappointed to hear that, but please make no mistake, we are targeted on that industry and we're targeted on your community.
I appreciate your comments. The only thing I'm going to say is, right, in the Secretary's entire remarks, right, the fact that the reason that we're all here and we defend the warfighter and we have the best, we never discussed this at all, right? We never discussed what we're doing with defense. And it is a big issue. And I just need, I appreciate you guys coming down to the think tank. I've been there, I met with your team. I appreciate it. But the fact that we've got boots on the ground, we need the investment, right? Because I've got businesses that are contemplating leaving. And I just, we don't want them to leave. They're here. And I want them to look at look at us the same way they look at our federal partners, right? And I think working together, we can do that. Now, if I could just transition, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. I think in my district, in District 29, when you come down there, I think I'm the only one there. I represent more water than I do land, right? So seafood is a big industry in my area. And that is one of the other things that we really haven't talked about very much. But when we talk about commerce and we talk about the effect that our seafood industry and what we protect in Maryland brings to the table every year, the last time I ran an analysis is when I was in federal court and having to figure this out, and it was around 2010. And just on rockfish alone, it brought $7 billion to the economy, just what spawns every year out of the Chesapeake Bay, right? 7 billion, right, with a B. It's a pretty big number. And so I started looking at marketing and how we market, and because we're in this crisis right now with oysters, right? And I see marketing, and it's over there in the agriculture, and they've got a budget of I might mess it up, it's 178 or 187,000 is what they do for marketing. When we talk about something that brings so many billions of dollars to the economy, right? And I would ask you all to look at that, because I truly think moving forward, when we look at the seal of Maryland and we got that farmer and that fisherman up there, right? We really need to remember where we were and get back to some of that. And I was on the phone with some marketing people from Alaska the other day, and I was talking to them about this, and I said, "What's your marketing budget?" And they were like, "In Alaska for salmon?" I said, "Yes." They said, "For one fish species, our marketing budget's $20 million." So I'm thinking, wow, they do $20 million in marketing for one fish. And I don't know how many billion the salmon bring, but I'm sure it's big. But I can't believe that there's a correlation there where it goes all the way down to 178,000 for us. We've got to do a better job on that, and I'm asking you with your team that we work with the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Natural Resources, and we work to enhance this, because it'll help not only the watermen, but it helps all the shippers. It helps everybody right to the restaurant where we get to enjoy that great Maryland seafood. Right, and so I think that this is just part of something that sometimes we forget about them. And I just wanted to take that minute. Thank you for the time.
And I appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
sir. We will take that for action. We do have the Maryland Marketing Partnership, and we'll put that topic on the table. And then also in terms of the partnership with agriculture and DNR, we'll tighten that up as we are with our forestry industry in Maryland. So thank you, sir.
And I would have had the senator take this offline, but we are making decisions within the next couple days. So we will, if you've got any suggestions for us or whatever, we will welcome that. But thank you for taking the time to have that discussion.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I don't see anything else. I think you're good for this afternoon.
Appreciate it, ma'am. Y'all
Thank
take
you.
care.
Okay, we have some people here to some witnesses. We've got Stephen Rice, Jennifer Lahat. That was all of you, okay. Okay. How about Matt Libber? Ruth Toomey, are you here? Okay, come on up. Stephen Kovanant. Michael Mason. Sure. Okay, who wants to start?
All right.
Go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Mike Mason. I'm here on behalf of our local destination marketing organizations, their professional association. I first just want to recognize them and ask if all the DMOs could please stand that are in the room, show support. These folks are some of the most vital folks in our tourism and economic development industry. Some of these operate as government entities and are working as EDOs and economic development officers. Some are individual partnerships that they have and set up as 501c6s. These are the folks that drive tourism in the state of Maryland. They're the ones that drive the $21 billion revenue that comes in every year from that. Last year alone, it was $2.5 billion in state and local tax money generated from there. We save Maryland families a tremendous amount of money every year when it comes to our taxes. And so as we always come every year and really speak to this subcommittee, is just kind of doing and asking, what more can we be doing? What more can we be doing growing the industry here? Protecting international travel, valuing our assets that we have here across the state from the Eastern Shore to Western Maryland as well. And so, we're happy to see this year the budget to be fully funded. Continue to ask to anything that we can do as partners to assist, the state of Maryland in growing the tourism industry, and just ask for your guys' continued support in it for over the years. So. Thank you.
Chair King and members of the subcommittee, I'm Barbara Ash. I'm President of the Montgomery County Chamber Community Foundation and National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement, and I'm here today in support of the Department of Commerce budget. They do a great job of supporting our veterans through the Veteran Institute for Procurement. This training program helps us train veterans in the private sector as well as federal government. We were just discussing aerospace and defense.
It's been a fabulous program.
Thank you so much, Senator King. And we have trained over 771 Maryland veteran small businesses since our founding. They have won over $11 billion in awards, and the economic impact is significant. And together we are truly building a local impact at the national scale. And I'm so honored to be able to have Mr. Stefan Kovana, and he is the CEO of Ascendant Program Services, join me today. And he has attended 3 of our 6 curriculums, and who better to really speak to the benefits of your investment in this program. Thank you.
Well, and thank you for all the hard work you do.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair King, members of the subcommittee, I'm Stefan Kovanin, as Barbara mentioned. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us. I'm here today to testify in support of the fiscal year 2027 budget request for the Department of Commerce. The Department of Commerce's budget funds grant support for nonprofits like the VIP program. After proudly serving my country in the Navy, my spouse, a Marine Corps veteran, and I decided to grow roots here and grow our young family in Maryland. One of our best decisions in our 23 years together. And after a few years in the private sector, I founded Ascendant in Montgomery County. I started in 2010 with myself and a business partner and an idea. And now in 2026, we're 112 employees doing work across multiple federal agencies. We provide construction services support worldwide for U.S. government initiatives, as well as supporting economic development initiatives. So we're building facilities and we're growing American jobs. Very proud to do that. First graduated from VIP in 2011. As Barbara mentioned, went back for more in 2017 and recently completed a VIP advance in January. We could not be where we are today without Barbara and her team's support in the VIP program. I believe that, that it's added significant value to our company as well as all of our fellow veterans that have decided to give it a shot and try starting businesses. We ask that this subcommittee fully fund the Department of Commerce's budget requests, which helps fund valuable programs like the VIP. If there's any questions, please, I'm happy to answer them, but thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good afternoon, Chair King and committee members, and thank you for fitting me in despite my error. My name is Ruth Toomey, the director of
It happens.
It does happen, so thank you. I am the director of the Maryland Tourism Coalition, and we are the 501c6 trade association for all sectors of the tourism industry across the state of Maryland. And I am here today to respectfully urge you to maintain the proposed budget for the Maryland Tourism Development Board, and also considered to restoring, well, the funds from the 2025 levels. Tourism is not a discretionary expense. It's an economic development engine. And our industry is often unseen, unheard, and overlooked. Tourism is one of Maryland's largest private sector employers, supporting nearly 200,000 jobs across all jurisdictions. These are accessible jobs, positions that do not require a four-year degree, that provide opportunity for young professionals, career changers, and individuals reentering the workforce. Tourism creates pathways to advancement and stability. In 2024, Maryland welcomed 45.8 million visitors who spent $21.2 billion with a B in our state. That activity generated more than $1.4 billion in state and local taxes, funding education, public safety, infrastructure, and essential services. Tourism pays for the priorities of the General Assembly without raising taxes on Maryland residents. In your packet, you would have received a information sheet that has a little bit more information of where the funds go. And the return on investment is undeniable. For every dollar spent in marketing in Maryland, $69 is returned to the general fund. Few budget lines can demonstrate that kind of a measurable fiscal impact. Yet Maryland is significantly outspent by neighboring states that invest 2 to 3, even times 4 more in tourism marketing. When we underinvest, we're not just saving money, we are sending our visitors across sorry, I am tired. We are sending visitors' monies across state lines. I ask you to consider your own districts. Your restaurants, hotels, attractions, waterfronts, and main streets depend on visitor traffic. Are we giving them the tools that they need to compete? The Maryland Tourism Coalition's motto is simple: tourism works for Maryland. When we invest in tourism, we invest in jobs, revenue, and economic vitality statewide. So please see us, please hear us, and pay attention to what we're doing. And I ask you to support the budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can't have it.
Good afternoon, Chair King. My name is Matt Libber. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Soccerplex, but I'm also the Legislative Chair for the Maryland Tourism Coalition. So my tourism colleagues up here got to say what we're supposed to say, and thank you for supporting the budget. I get to say what we really want to say, and we're asking for more money. And I know that's a bold ask right now in our situation, but there's a reason for it. Money that comes to us is actually an investment, not an expense. So the more money we can put into tourism, the more money we can bring back into the state. And right now, we're losing the battle to our competitors. Every neighboring jurisdiction outspends us, and outspends us by a lot, including now Delaware, which has never done that before. And to kind of give you an apples-to-apples comparison, I'll give you a per capita spending. So Maryland's at $1.81, Pennsylvania $2.35, Virginia $4.20, Delaware $5.54, West Virginia, $12.80, and DC is a straight outlier at $64 per person. So we are drastically underspending, and we're seeing the results now. Our hotel occupancy rates are down, and down more than what the rest of the U.S. is seeing. So it is a struggle. And, going back to Senator Bailey, where you're talking about competitiveness, this says it right here. We're losing the battle to other states, and they're coming into our markets and taking people that are already coming here and going somewhere else. If you go to Ocean City, you're going to see those planes flying with banners for every other state. I mean,
Can I make a request, though? Can we sit down and talk about this before we get to budget time next year?
Absolutely.
Because if we're going to ask for money in the budget, you have to have a plan and come to us early so we can do something different.
Happy to have that conversation.
Okay, love that.
So again, this is an investment. So we're hoping to fix the not deficit, sorry, the budgetary shortfall, projected
Oh,
shortfall.
you got the message.
Got the message? So
Our chairman will be so happy to hear that.
we want to help fix that problem, so bringing more money to tourism allows us to bring more money back to the state, and the best part of that is it's someone else's money and not Marylanders' money.
Right.
So thank you for your time.
Well, you know, the soccerplex is about in my backyard, and I love what happens over there, and I'm happy to work with you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we can move on to the, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
I'll keep it very quick. Questions for you, Mike. In regards to grants, enrolling out in grants, have you seen across the state, because you work with all the DMOs, right? As far as a timeliness issue with that, because I meant to bring this up earlier with the when the secretary and his people were up there, the analyst sometimes talks about programs that aren't being utilized.
Right.
But then when I hear from my own DMO that we have grants that have been sitting out for 4 or 5, 6 months, the department just hasn't even responded to, that causes some concern of, well, is the money not getting rolled out because the department's not acting on it fast enough, or is it actually not being requested? And from what I've seen where I live, it's being requested, but it seems to be a little bit delay on the money getting back out the door. So are you seeing that statewide?
I'd have to speak with them more kind of globally and geographically to get with you offline to see what's accurate. I would say it's likely that of the disbursements, you know, we're going through big things right now, of course, with changes in Sports Corp and Sports Commission and large investments that make there as well too, and kind of talking about the future of that. I think a lot of it is probably that relationship between back and forth between some of our local DMOs and Commerce. I mean, we strive to maintain an impeccable relationship with the tourism office there to get it out. But we have these needs. They're immediate needs at times. There are large investments, large sporting events, large entertainment venues as well too. That's coming. But, you know, specifically, I would have to say, you know, I'm sure Dan's probably experiencing it in Washington County. I have heard in other areas that folks have heard of this disbursement issues as well too.
Okay.
But can get you more specific.
Yeah, just
cases.
we'll follow up offline, but if you could keep us in the loop as far as, we'll make sure the money's actually getting out the door.
Sure.
I see the secretary looking as well, and I know that
Yeah,
that's the goal. So
that's the most important goal
yep.
at the end of the day.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly Schultz, come on up. Harry Coker. He left, or he, okay, and I think that is all of the oral. Is there anyone else? Come on up. If I haven't called your name, come on up. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, Madam Chair, it's so nice to be here. It's been kind of a little bit of a
nice to
reunion
have you.
today. I had Labor here and Commerce here and all my friends. It brings me to my point, Madam Chair and members of this wonderful subcommittee. You cannot have economic development without workforce development, and you cannot have workforce development without economic development. So kudos to the presentations of those teams that presented to you here today. I am here specifically, my name is Kelly Schultz. I'm the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. And we do have a budget item in Commerce's budget this year, placed there by the governor, who just yesterday morning spoke very highly of our program, BioHub Maryland, and what we're doing in order to be able to educate students at the very entry level going into biopharmaceutical manufacturing in the state of Maryland, not just where our training center is.
Explain to me, though, but I thought the money was taken out of the budget for that, no?
This is the request for BioHub Maryland this year that the governor has requested that he put into the Commerce budget.
Okay.
So it's in the Commerce budget right now. The analyst spoke earlier that she requests that that
Okay.
budget get cut again this
Okay.
year. And as Secretary Coker, thank you, Mr. Coker, so aptly explained, it's not really level funding to last year, because last year the governor had also put in $2 million for his budget last year as well.
Okay.
And we received $500,000 last year. So we want to be able to continue with this program. We have come to the state 3 years in a row, and Madam Chair, you have been a huge advocate for BioHub Maryland, and we appreciate you and the members of this committee in the Senate 100% for what you have done to fight for what we believe is the future of biotech in the state of Maryland. Currently, Maryland ranks number 3 in biotech ecosystems across the country. We are behind California and Massachusetts. And we are very proud of that number 3 ranking because of the size geographically and demographically of what we have here. But we have to fight for everything that we get. And there has been a lot of recent activities that have happened at the federal level recently, which has really kind of, hindered some of the research and development and those assets and those resources that we do have here. So BioHub Maryland, for example, has helped to re-educate and to upskill some of those federal workers that have been let go from some of our federal assets to get them back into the ecosystem, and more importantly, keep them here in Maryland where we need that talent. Because if there is one asset that we really have to hold on to, it is those resources of the talent and the assets of the workforce product that we have. BioHub Maryland wants to be able to expand, to reach out to different parts of the state and to be able to, really, increase the economic value of our workforce talent that we have here. So very respectfully, I ask for this committee to make sure that the governor's allotment towards the BioHub Maryland training facilities stay intact in Commerce's budget. And Madam Chair, just one tiny other thing, because I think you and I are okay with this one too. The BITC tax credit, I think we need to keep that intact as well. My members would greatly appreciate the BITC tax credit.
And we would love any kind of budget language that you've got to help us through with that.
Of course, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Chair King, honorable members of the committee, my name is Nicholas Cohen. I serve as Executive Director of Maryland Citizens for the Arts. We're the statewide organization advocating for public investment in the arts. I want to thank the governor, his administration, and the General Assembly for their continued leadership and support of Maryland's arts sector. Each year, the State Arts Council supports thousands of artists and organizations and helps ensure that arts funding reaches every corner of our state. We know that the arts sector is not ancillary to the state's economic vitality. It is a meaningful driver of economic activity, workforce participation, and tourism across Maryland. With respect to the DLS recommendations, we urge the committee to reject these proposals given their long-term implications and the harm they would cause to Maryland's arts sector. Reducing the State Arts Council's funding below the governor's proposal, leveling the statutory growth formula, or eliminating the dedicated admissions and amusement tax distribution would not simply adjust a line item, it would alter the structural framework that has guided Maryland's arts investment for decades. The Arts Stabilization Act was intentionally designed to provide predictable, formula-driven funding that grows in alignment with states' revenues. Weakening this structure risks destabilizing organizations and artists who rely on that predictability to plan programs, hire staff, secure matching funds, and serve communities across rural, suburban, and urban Maryland. The proposed reduction represents a very small portion of the state's overall budget, yet it would have an outsized impact on a sector already facing reduced federal and philanthropic support. We also know the state's investment in the arts generates significant economic return, and the Maryland State Arts Council ensures these funds are distributed transparently, reaching communities in every legislative district. So with that said, we respectfully urge the committee to support the governor's proposed budget, reject the DLS recommendations. Thank you so much for your time and support of the arts sector.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Ellinghaus. I am a Marylander, born and bred, and for the last nearly 12 years, I've had the honor of serving as Executive Director of Olney Theater Center for the Arts. Thank you for supporting us, Senator King. I spent many years living and working outside of Maryland, returned home more than a decade ago to raise my family and grow my career here because this state understands something vital. Maryland does the arts better. Olney Theater has a direct impact on our state's economy. We employ over 500 artists and theater workers annually. More than 90% of them are Maryland residents. While the majority of our audience does come from Maryland, a significant amount of our audience comes from nearby states, boosting regional tourism. Despite our successes, we are facing a triple threat, and not the kind that we admire in our industry. This triple threat endangers our ability to remain an economic and cultural anchor. One, exploding costs. Our operating costs have increased by more than 100% in the last 6 years. This is due to inflation, as well as increased demands for our programs. The funding gap. Pandemic relief has evaporated, federal arts funding has completely disappeared, and private foundations are shifting priorities to social services over the arts. Individual donors are philanthropically fatigued and economically stressed. This was never more evident than during the federal shutdown last fall. In fact, Olney Theater is facing a deficit of equivalent to 10% of our total budget this year. This is extremely significant for us, but actually much lower than the average for our industry. And the third triple threat is the media desert. With the Washington Post recently ending its arts coverage, our ability to reach audiences through traditional channels has been decimated. MSAC has the enormous task of feeding a growing sector in the midst of generational change with limited resources, and Olney has long been a grateful recipient to their support. But the buying power of those grants have decreased as our costs have increased. So I ask that you prioritize full funding for the Maryland State Arts Council in this year's budget to ensure that Maryland continues to do it better forever. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Quarterman, good to see you, and Senator Bailey. My name is Brittany Arizmendi, and I serve the City of Hagerstown through our Main Street and our Hagerstown Arts and Entertainment District. I'm here today because I've seen firsthand how the Maryland State Arts Council transforms communities. The State Arts Council supports more than 300 arts organizations and hundreds of artists across Maryland. In Hagerstown, that support has helped turn creativity into real economic momentum. Our Hagerstown Cultural Trail has become the epicenter of downtown revitalization, inspiring more than $100 million in public and private investment since its inception, including Meredith Park, which is a new minor league baseball stadium, new restaurants, businesses, and even a new live music venue that brings even more activity to our city. Through support from the Maryland State Arts Council, our Arts and Entertainment District has been able to bring murals, music, performances, and cultural programming, activating our public spaces, drawing visitors, supporting small businesses, and creating opportunities for artists. State funding represents only about 6% of arts organizations' revenue, yet that modest investment unlocks the other 94%. Fueling jobs, tourism, and economic growth. The arts are not just about culture. They're about community, identity, and opportunity. In Hagerstown, we see that every day. We appreciate and encourage the continued support of the Maryland State Arts Council through this budget. Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Good afternoon, Chair King, members of the committee. My name is Amy Rohrer. I am here on behalf of the Maryland Hotel and Lodging Association in support of the state's budget for tourism, marketing, and promotion. I submitted written testimony and would like to hone in on the numbers for hotels. Performance across the country was overall flat for hotels last year. Unfortunately, Maryland hotels performed below both national and regional benchmarks. I'd like to specifically point you to RevPAR, revenue per available room. It's the industry's most important benchmark. It's how we measure whether we are gaining or losing ground against our competitors. In 2025, Maryland hotels experienced negative RevPAR growth, negative 1.9% year over year. The South Atlantic region, which we are in, was flat. Maryland's 1.9% decline translates into real economic consequences, nearly $86 million in lost room revenue last year alone, over $5 million in unrealized state sales tax, and over $200 million in lost guest spending.
But
and
what is the reason for that?
The
decline?
It's largely here in Maryland, I think, the cut to the tourism budget. We took a significant cut to the tourism budget last year.
Okay.
So, The state also missed out on the taxes on the $200 million in guest spending that we never had because those guests never came. So Maryland hotels clearly booked fewer rooms at a lower rate in 2025 versus 2024. So we're losing market share to competing states that continue to invest aggressively in tourism promotion. So I will just close by saying that investment in tourism marketing is an economic and workforce strategy for the state. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Senator Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to talk a little bit more about this, I have some friends that told me how much it was down. And is it one geographic area in Maryland that is down, or is it just across the board in Maryland?
It certainly varies from one area to the next. I would say that the capital region has been hit especially hard by the government shutdown and everything happening at a federal level, but that extends beyond that region. Baltimore City is struggling significantly. I mean, there have been hotels in the news recently, major hotels in the city that have shut down or are in foreclosure. But I think what you might read is that the luxury hotels and the upper upscale hotels are the ones that performed better last year, and it's the lower, some of the budget and economy hotels that really, really are hurting. It's the small business owners.
Thank you.
I guess I'm batting cleanup. Thank you, Madam Chair King, senators, and Senate staff. My name is Sig Libowitz. I'm the director of the Johns Hopkins Graduate Film and Media Program. And I'm happy to say we were just ranked as one of the top 20 film programs in America. But I'm not just here for myself. I'm here for Towson State University, Stevenson, Morgan State, University of Maryland, and wonderful schools like the Baltimore School for the Arts, the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. We have programs here in this state that really are training the next generation of filmmakers and storytellers. And I'm here in support and to ask you enthusiastically and emphatically, like the good secretary said before, in support of the Maryland Film Production Activity Tax Credit. It brings vital benefits to the state, and it provides opportunities for the next generation to stay here, to bring taxes here, to raise families here. And I would like to say, because you were talking about the sphere, over at Hopkins, we have part of our concentration is what we call ISET, the Immersive Storytelling Emerging Technologies Program, which is training students in the actual technology that creates the sphere. So in terms of different game technologies, virtual reality, AI, don't let this leave the state. Mm-hmm. We've created something, in this community for many years, whether it started with people like John Waters and Barry Levinson and David Simon, to new people who then started to bring in Baltimoreans and other successful films and projects. Right. There's a great opportunity in the state. Let's keep it here. And as our motto says, movies mean money for Maryland. Let's do that. Thank you.
Over the years, in every year, I think we've done the battle for the film tax credit, and the number of jobs that it creates across the state it's an incredible number. So it's just important for us to remember that and keep supporting. So I'm with you. I got to make it happen, but I'm with you.
Well, we thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator Quarterman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be brief. First off, I want to thank Mrs. Ayers-Mendy for being here today, as well as I know from our DMO, Dan Spence in the back, and I think it's just a testament of how important some of these things are in our part of the state when we have people willing to drive many, many hours and take their day out. So I appreciate your advocacy and appreciate both of you guys being here. I did have a question real quick for Kelly. You guys were talking about this biohub thing. I don't know a whole lot about that. It sounds really interesting, but I'd be curious as far as, obviously, it's in Montgomery County, what type of economic impact does it have on the rest of the state?
Yeah, so thank you, Senator. I'd be happy to bring you and anybody else that wants to do a tour in our facility to look at the amazing equipment that we have. The BioHub Training Center is located in Montgomery County just because of the sheer number of manufacturers that are there in order to be able to feed that system. But as far as statewide economic opportunities, we just created a partnership last summer, actually, with Bowie State University. They don't have the type of equipment that they have within the university system to give those students the hands-on training. We also have something with Hood College. We were the main workforce development opportunity for the Baltimore Tech Hub application that the GBC led for the EDA for national. So our goal with this globally recognized curriculum that is exclusive used by Eli Lilly, AstraZeneca, in order to expand that across the state, because we do know that once we have the expansion, once we have some revenues to bring in additional trainers to the trainers that we have, we can expand this program out to pretty much any part of the state where people want to be able to be a part of a really fantastic career pathway.
Excellent.
Thank you
appreciate all
so
you're doing
much.
there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you.